Chapter 3049. However, after being recommended by everyone, Myriad Sword Master felt that it was better to let Jing Yun, who was an upper-level dominator, directly advance to the supreme level. It was obviously more suitable for an upper-level dominator to advance than a half-step supreme. When everyone heard this, they felt that it made sense, so they did not continue to argue. They let Jing Yun, who was too embarrassed, enter the Eternal Divine Tower to cultivate. Finally, with Night Sorrow's nod, Jing Yun finally went in and began to cultivate. Night Sorrow led the others to search for the exit of the cave in front of them. However, after looking around, they found that there was no exit at all. At this moment, Myriad Sword Master asked doubtfully, if there is no exit or entrance, how did the armored zombie leave after killing the supreme level? After all, when we first entered here, there were no creatures in the cave. That makes sense. Let's look carefully, Night Sorrow said, and then transmitted his voice to the restriction-breaking hammer. You guys also study and see if there are any restrictions around. We've been looking, but we haven't found any clues. The hammer replied immediately. They really couldn't find any way out. Little Seven had no way out either. For a time, everyone was trapped in the cave. Just like that, he had been trapped for 10 years. In these 10 years, Night Sorrow and the others tried all kinds of methods, but they couldn't leave. Obviously, their attacks couldn't threaten the cave in front of them. After 10 years of being trapped, Myriad Sword Master sat helplessly on the ground and said sadly, "We won't be trapped here forever, right? There's such a possibility. If there's really no other way, we can only cultivate hard. Try to break through to the supreme level and then try to attack the surrounding walls." Night Sorrow said helplessly. After being trapped for so many years, he had no way out. Divine Finger was the most powerful attack in the Eternal Supreme World, but it couldn't break through the walls of the cave. Because the walls of the cave could grow by themselves. After being blasted open, they would heal by themselves in the blink of an eye. Sigh. Without relying on resources, it's easier said than done to advance to the supreme level. Among us, I'm afraid only Jing Yun can advance to the supreme level. Myriad Sword Master said helplessly. It's fine. If we go out late, we'll miss the opportunity at most. It's nothing. At this moment, Xiao Tianxian comforted her. He, on the other hand, had been relatively calm and had been cultivating peacefully. That's nothing. Can you imagine the purpose of our trip? It was to rescue the 2 Vice City Lords. The strength of the 2 City Lords should be slightly stronger than Brother Yi. Aren't you also trapped in the formation and unable to come out? Master Wan Jian said speechlessly. After hearing what he said, everyone's faces changed. That's right. The 2 Vice City Lords were trapped in the same grotto heavens. Their situation was very likely the same as theirs. Don't worry, we will definitely be able to get out. At this moment, Night Sorrow comforted him with certainty. He had the Supreme Longevity Summoning Stone in his hands. He could summon the Supreme Longevity from any corner of the Eternal Supreme World. With his ability, he would definitely have a way to leave. What was that sound? Why is there thunder in the cave? After Night Sorrow finished speaking, Yuan Fengshues suddenly asked with a puzzled expression. What thunder? Hearing this, Master Wan Jian frowned. But soon, he also heard the sound of thunder. At this moment, Little Seven said, it's Jing Yun facing the supreme tribulation in the Eternal Divine Tower. If nothing unexpected happens, she will soon become a supreme. Really? That's great. Hearing that Jing Yun was about to become a supreme, everyone's eyes lit up. Night Sorrow and Wu Lingfei were a little worried that Jing Yun would not be able to withstand the supreme tribulation. However, the facts proved that their worries were completely unnecessary. Half a month later, a delicate shout suddenly came from the Eternal Divine Tower. Then, Jing Yun's graceful figure suddenly flew out of the Eternal Divine Tower. At this moment, runes were flowing on her body, making her look like a floating immortal. And her aura was very stable. She did not give off a feeling of emptiness because her strength had increased too quickly. Haha. Congratulations to Jing Yun for becoming a supreme. You are one step ahead of all of us. After confirming that Jing Yun had successfully become a supreme, Master Wan Jian was the first to congratulate her. Knight Sorrow's face had a trace of a smile. He was sincerely happy for her. Then, everyone else also congratulated her. After everyone finished, Jing Yun said softly, "Actually, when I entered the Supreme Divine Tower to cultivate this time, not only did my strength advance to the level of a lower supreme, I also obtained a lot of useful things." "Oh? What things?" Wu Lingfei was puzzled. "The things I obtained were the armored zombies' memories. It turns out that in the big and small grotto heavens, there are 3 big grotto heavens and 3,000 small grotto heavens. What place is here?" "It is one of the small grotto heavens." At this point, Jing Yun paused for a moment and said, "And in the big and small grotto heavens, there are cave masters. The cave masters in the 3 big grotto heavens are all earthly sovereigns. However, their strength is suppressed by the supreme space, so they can't completely unleash the strength of an earthly sovereign. As for the 3,000 small grotto heavens, the cave master's strength is about the same as the armored zombies. Then how do we get out? There should be such things in the armored zombies' memories, right?" After Jing Yun finished speaking, Knight Sorrow asked. "Of course there is." Jing Yun smiled and said, "What I'm talking about is the original cave master. Actually, anyone who defeats the original cave master can become the new cave master and have the authority to enter and exit the grotto heavens. In this small grotto heavens, the cave master was defeated by everyone. However, its laws and essence have all been absorbed by me. Therefore, I became the new cave master of this small grotto heavens. It is very easy to get out." "Is that so?" "That's great." After Jing Yun finished speaking, Master Wan Jian immediately laughed. After being trapped for so many years, now that they could finally get out, he was not the only one who was relieved. Everyone else also relaxed. Getting out is a very simple thing. But the problem is that the purpose of our trip is to rescue the 2 deputy city lords. There are more than 3,000 grotto heavens. How are we going to find them?" At this time, Jing Yun said hesitantly, "Other than the cave master, is there any other way to break into the grotto heavens?" Knight Sorrow continued to ask. He felt that having many grotto heavens was not a problem. But the fatal thing was that if they barged in recklessly, it was very likely that they would be trapped in one of the grotto heavens. If the cave master of the grotto heavens did not choose to fight to the death like the armored zombie, but chose to escape directly, then they would be trapped in the grotto heavens forever. That would be very tragic. There is a way, such as an earthly supreme level attack. Or a heavenly supreme level attack. Jing Yun said helplessly. So there is no way to break into those grotto heavens? Hearing this, everyone in the heavenly realm territory was a little disappointed. However, at this time, Knight Sorrow suddenly said, the 2 city lords should be able to be saved. Chapter 30-50. Oh. How are we going to save them? We are not earthly sovereigns or heavenly sovereigns. It is definitely not a wise choice to go to other grotto heavens. After Knight Sorrow finished speaking, Xiao Tianxian asked doubtfully. We do not have the attack power of an earthly sovereign or heavenly sovereign now. But as long as I advance to sovereign, the divine finger should not be inferior to an ordinary earthly sovereign attack. At that time, we can travel between different grotto heavens. Yi Shan analyzed for a moment before he continued, therefore, we should go and fight for the fortuitous encounters. As long as we get the opportunity, everything will be fine. That makes sense. Others in the sovereign realm cannot attack at the level of an earthly sovereign. But you are different. You can fight across realms. Naturally, you can also attack at the level of an earthly sovereign. Hearing this, Xiao Tianxuan's eyes lit up. Everyone else's eyes were also filled with boundless light. At this time, Knight Sorrow looked at Jing Yun and asked, Jing Yun, you have some memories of the armored zombie. Is there any record of the opportunity in it? Currently, we are in the dark and do not know anything. There are some. Jing Yun organized her words and said faintly, in the armored zombie's memory, a great opportunity will appear in the sky of the grotto heavens every million years. The earthly sovereign's rules and essence will fall from the sky. But every time, the competition is very fierce. Many cave masters will fall in the competition. This is also the reason why the armored zombie is crazily accumulating divine souls. In addition, many sovereigns from the eternal sovereign realm will appear. Will the cave masters of the three grotto heavens appear? After Jing Yun finished speaking, Night Sorrow asked. If there were no accidents, the competition for the opportunity would definitely be a big scene. In a chaotic battle, if there were three earthly sovereigns, it would be too dangerous. Although their strength would be suppressed, ordinary sovereigns would not be able to fight against them. There will also be opportunities in the sky of the three grotto heavens. The opportunities in the three grotto heavens will be much stronger than those in the 3,000 grotto heavens. Generally speaking, the three cave masters only need to guard the opportunities in the three grotto heavens. He wouldn't abandon the watermelon to pick up the sesame. However, if someone wants to steal the fortune from the three grotto heavens, they will definitely be attacked crazily. Jing Yun organized her thoughts and explained to everyone. Everyone in the divine world was filled with fighting spirit. Without a doubt. The upcoming opportunity would definitely be a crazy fight for it. In the midst of fortuitous encounters, there were bound to be cruel killings. However, if one could emerge from the cruel slaughter and snatch a large number of opportunities, one would be able to become a new force. These people from the God world would also successfully advance to the autarch level. That way, he would be able to catch up with the experts of the older generation and be able to hold his own. Especially Night Sorrow, if he could successfully advance, he would definitely reach the heavens in a single bound. He was about to break away from the sovereign realm and reach the level of the Earth sovereign. After we get the opportunity, we will give it to Night Sorrow first and strive to let him break through to the Supreme Being level first. This is a big deal. Does anyone have any objections? After Jing Yun finished speaking, Xiao Tianxian pondered for a moment before speaking. What's there to disagree about? Brother Yi advancing to the Supreme Being level is the key to saving the two deputy city lords. Of course, we agree. Wang Jianzong said indifferently and continued, but I say, Brother Xiao, we are all going through life and death together. Things like resources, don't talk about it in the future. It's unnecessary and will affect our relationship. Hee, that's right. Between us, there's no distinction between us. Jin Xian also said with a smile. Xiao Tianxian also laughed at their words. Yes, it's my fault. I apologize to everyone. At this moment, Yuan Fengxue asked curiously, Oh right, Jing Yun. When will the opportunity that you mentioned arrive? According to the armored zombie's memory, it should be around 30 years. After Jing Yun said this, she pondered for a moment and continued, generally speaking, whenever this period approaches, there will be many people entering the big and small grotto heavens. If there are no accidents, there will definitely be people entering the grotto heavens we are in. There will be a lot of battles. It's better if people come. Anyway, our divine world territory has no friends in the eternal supreme world. When the time comes, we will kill whoever comes. Wang Jianzong said with hostility. All these years. Under the suppression of the top-ranked territories, the territories in the eternal supreme world had indeed stood on the opposite side of the divine world territory. The reason why the divine world territory could survive until now was basically because of the prestige of the supreme longevity. If we kill a few more, maybe we can accumulate enough resources to let one of you advance to the sovereign level. However, killing sovereigns can only obtain the sovereign level rules and essence. Night Sorrow needs the sovereign level rules and essence, he has no use for these. After Wang Jianzong finished speaking, Little Seven said eagerly. This is indeed a good thing. You guys are so talented that you don't need to consider absorbing the ordinary sovereign level rules and essence, but I need them. Next time, let me advance. Nie Zhonglin, who had not spoken for a long time, said with a smile. In the past, Jin Xian was the weakest in this team. But now, the weakest one was Nie Zhonglin. Nie Zhonglin was a little unwilling to accept the current situation. He thought that although the earlier one advanced, the weaker the accumulation, it was still better than being last forever. Good. Since Zhonglin thinks so, we will naturally support you. Nie Zhonglin finally spoke, and Night Sorrow immediately supported him. After that, the people of the Divine World territory returned to the small grotto heaven controlled by Jing Yun, and waited patiently for the arrival of the other territory's cultivators. When they entered the grotto heaven, they randomly appeared in the small grotto heaven in front of them, and it should be the same for the others. Therefore, they were not worried that a large number of sovereigns would enter at once. However, after waiting in the grotto heaven for 2 years, not a single sovereign appeared. Wang Jianzong could not sit still anymore, and asked Night Sorrow, "Brother Yi, is the concealment array that you set up still there? Use the image stone to observe what happened at the entrance of the grotto heaven. Is that okay?" "Sure. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about it," Night Sorrow replied. Speaking of which, it had been a few years since they entered the grotto heaven, and he was not sure if the image stone was still there. "That's right. It's still there, and it's in perfect condition." Night Sorrow confirmed that the image stone in the concealment array was in perfect condition. Immediately, an image was constructed in the grotto heaven. This image was naturally from the image stone, and it recorded the situation at the entrance of the grotto heaven. Very good, with these images, we can see all the possible opponents in advance. After the image appeared, Wang Jianzong said excitedly. Chapter 3051. It's just a part of the eternal supreme world. The enemies in the grotto heaven should all be very strong. What we need to pay attention to the most is still them. After saying this, Yi Shang continued, "However, I don't think so. In our small grotto heaven, the enemies we may encounter will be clear at a glance. This is very advantageous for the battle. How about this, when we have nothing to do, we will cultivate here. One of us will pay attention to the image." "Good. Then you all cultivate, I will pay attention to the image." Nie Zhonglin volunteered. If he did nothing and directly entered the eternal divine tower to cultivate, he would really be embarrassed. After Nie Zhonglin began to pay attention to the image sent by the image stone, the rest of the people in the God World territory entered the state of cultivation one by one. In terms of realm, they have all reached the peak of the supreme level. It is impossible to break through in a short period of time. Therefore, under the guidance of Night Sorrow, they began to use the divine finger to create their own absolute art. After explaining the general theory, Night Sorrow also began to study the divine finger and mysterious sky's secret shadow. He had also studied these two divine abilities before, but his study was not very detailed. The fusion of the absolute art is also not considered the top. And in the next fight for the opportunity, there will probably be thousands of supremes. It will definitely be a big scene, but it will also contain endless danger. If you are not careful, you will be sneak attacked. Therefore, Night Sorrow wants to fuse an even more powerful absolute art in the next 30 years or so. This time, he wants to add something of his own into the absolute art. However, after studying for more than 2 years, he has just made some progress. Nie Zhonglin reminded everyone, "Pay attention, someone is preparing to enter the large and small grotto heaven. Looking at their clothes, they should be people from the Moon's Shadow territory. There are 12 supremes in their group. 3 of them are half-step Earth supremes. Their strength is not to be underestimated. Everyone, get ready for battle. If they descend here, everyone will use their divine abilities at the first moment. Try to give them a heavy blow at the first moment." After waking up from the state of enlightenment, Night Sorrow immediately instructed. "Don't worry. We won't be polite at all." Thousand Sword Sect and Murong Zhenlu rubbed their fists and said. If it had been a few hundred years ago, any one of the 12 people from the Moon's Shadow estate would have been able to kill these people from the divine world. But now, the 11 of them, including Night Sorrow, had completely grown up. He's in. Everyone, prepare to attack. Seeing that the people of the Moon's Shadow Estate had entered their respective grotto heavens, Nye Zhonglin reminded them. At the same time, he was already preparing the God's Finger. They were prepared to launch an unexpected attack the moment the people from the Moon's Shadow Estate appeared. In fact, Nye Zhonglin wasn't the only one. Night Sorrow and Xiao Tianxian were the same. They had also prepared the God's Finger and were waiting for the people of the Moon's Shadow Estate to descend into the small grotto heaven before them. However, things did not go as planned. In the end, the people of the Moon's Shadow Estate did not appear. After calming himself down, Night Sorrow asked in confusion, Jing Yun. If everyone entered one of the grotto heavens, they would be teleported to one of the smaller grotto heavens. How could outsiders compete for the opportunities above the 3,000 paradises? After all, if the cave master doesn't let them go, they won't be able to leave. After the opportunity opens, I'll try to find a way out. Those who enter the grotto heavens will be directly teleported to the sky above the 3,000 grotto heavens. There is no possibility of being trapped by the grotto masters. Jing Yun said. He said. Then why did the people of the Moon's Shadow Estate come more than 20 years in advance? After all, with the strength of the Moon's Shadow Estate, they should be very clear about this kind of opportunity, Night Sorrow speculated doubtfully. Who knows, the Moon's Shadow Estate might have already taken control of some of the small grotto heavens. They might have a cave master in their group, and they might be able to teleport directly into the small grotto heavens, Jing Yun analyzed. Yes. What you said is very reasonable. But if that's the case, then the only people who can enter our little grotto heaven are hotheads like us. Night Sorrow said with a smile. He thought to himself, there really aren't many people like them, who are fearless and directly charge in. What happened later proved this point. In the following 10 years or so, some of the cultivators who appeared should be similar to those from the Moon's Shadow Estate. Even though they had their own grotto heavens, none of them had entered this small grotto heaven. And Night Sorrow, in these 10 years, had also completely integrated a new unique skill. Mysterious Immortal Golden Slash. This move had integrated the speed of the mysterious sky's secret shadow, the attack power similar to the divine finger, and the attribute attack of the golden heavenly halberd. It was very powerful. As for Xiao Tianxian, the myriad sword sect, and the others, they had also gained something. Especially Wu Lingfei, who used her bloodline talent to integrate a very powerful flame attack. Phoenix burns the 9 heavens. After she struck out this attack, every wisp of flame was like the divine finger, with great destructive power. After she developed it, Jing Yun, who also had the Phoenix bloodline, simply learned this move from her. It didn't take long for her to master it. Because Jing Yun was a supreme being, her execution of this move was stronger than Wu Lingfei's. Her current attack had completely left Xiao Tianxian, the myriad sword sect, and the others in the dust. Among the crowd, she was second only to Night Sorrow. Although Night Sorrow hadn't advanced to the Supreme Being realm, his strongest attack could already challenge a half-step earthly Supreme Being. It wasn't something that Jing Yun could compare to. Under Wu Lingfei and Jing Yun's guidance, everyone began to exchange ideas and gained a lot. Out of confidentiality, Night Sorrow didn't tell anyone about the mysterious sky's secret shadow, afraid that the Supreme Longevity's possession of Feng Wuji would be exposed. Someone's here. Someone's finally here. It's Supreme Being Qing He. Qingyun Territory Supreme Being Qing He. In the battle for Providence, he was one of the 108 Supreme Beings. While everyone was exchanging ideas, Nye Zhonglin, who had been waiting for someone to come, spoke again excitedly. However, after he finished speaking, he said in surprise, "Oh no. Qingyun Territory has sent 16 Supreme Beings at once. 3 of them are half-step earthly Supreme Beings. With their strength, they're not to be trifled with. If they enter the small grotto heaven we're in, we might not be their match. What's there to be afraid of? If we're not their match, let Jing Yun teleport us out." Hearing Nye Zhonglin's words, the myriad sword sect said disdainfully. Yes, that makes sense. We're in an invincible position. Nie Zhonglin smiled and formed the divine finger again at the same time. The others in the heavenly realm were also on guard. However, this time, they were no longer channeling the divine finger. They were all preparing for a new ultimate technique. And this time, the people of Qingyun territory were really randomly teleported to the small grotto heaven they were in. Clan M. Chapter 3052. Attack. After the people of the Green Cloud territory teleported in, Night Sorrow immediately roared. He knew very well that the 108 Supremes who could participate in the battle for Providence were all half-step earthly Supremes and had a certain status in their territories. None of them were easy to deal with. Therefore, in terms of overall strength, the other party was definitely stronger than them. The people of the celestial realm had to act quickly and deal a heavy blow to the other party before they landed on the ground. And that was indeed the case in reality. Although Supremacy Qing He and the others of the Green Cloud territory had been vigilant, they did not expect to encounter all kinds of attacks as soon as they landed. Boom! 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 After Night Sorrow gave the order, the attacks of the people of the celestial realm were all focused on the people of the Green Cloud territory. That kind of concentrated public attack made these supreme beings feel like they were in a terrible fix. For a time, the people of the Green Cloud territory were bombarded into a sorry state. Even Supremacy Qing He, who was leading the team, was unable to stand steadily. Continue to attack, use secret treasures and divine artifacts. After the people of the Green Cloud territory lost their footing, Night Sorrow continued to remind them. Kill. Then, the people of the celestial realm roared loudly. Just as the people of the Green Cloud territory were about to start preparing, they all raised their strength to the maximum and fought with thousands of people. Although the small grotto heaven in front of them was not big, it was more than enough to accommodate dozens of people fighting. Although the people of the celestial realm, who had the upper hand, did not have the advantage in terms of numbers and strength, they obviously caught the other party off guard in the battle. Many of the cultivators of the Green Cloud territory fell into a passive state before they could use many of their methods. For example, Supremacy Qing He of the Green Cloud territory, who was a half-step earthly supremacy, was suppressed by Night Sorrow's crazy attacks. You're Night Sorrow of the celestial realm? Good, very good. The younger generation is really to be feared. After all, Qinghe had participated in the battle for Providence and was very familiar with Night Sorrow. He immediately recognized Night Sorrow's identity. However, he didn't underestimate Yi Shang just because he was a half-step supreme being. Night Sorrow had led an extremely weak celestial realm territory to win the battle for Providence by himself. This showed that he was a person of great providence. Supremacy Qing He knew that in terms of luck, he was definitely not as good as Night Sorrow's. The situation in front of him also proved this point. The only thing he could rely on was his powerful strength. Different half-step earthly supremes had different levels of strength. As a Supremacy Qing He was a supremacy of the celestial realm, he was very confident in his strength supremacy of the celestial realm. After Supremacy Qing He spoke, Night Sorrow said coldly, when it comes to fighting, he's an opponent. There's nothing of the younger generation. All these years, you people have been humiliating the God world in every possible way. Now is the time to settle the karma. Ha 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 ha. If you're talking about the celestial realm's territory, our Qinghe group was really involved in it. And I've personally killed a female cultivator named Supremacy Rui and even severely injured a male cultivator named Supremacy of the Horn Clan. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, Supremacy Qing He sneered and roared, the next one to be killed is you, Night Sorrow. Don't think that you can behave atrociously in the supreme space just because you have amazing providence. You're still too inexperienced. At the same time, Supremacy Qing He summoned his halberd and smashed it toward Night Sorrow. The target that Night Sorrow had chosen to attack was Supremacy Qing He. One of his arms was injured, and his primordial energy was constantly leaking out. However, the battle had already begun. so Supremacy Qing he did not have the time to pay attention to it. His slash unleashed an endless amount of golden light that slashed horizontally at Yishang. This seemed to be the simplest slash, but Night Sorrow suddenly felt like his body was bound and he could only take the attack head-on. So be it. Who's afraid? Mystic Immortal Golden Slash. Today, I'll take revenge for the Horn Clan's supremacy. Faced with Supremacy Qing He's powerful attack, Night Sorrow roared and used the immortal golden slash that he had just comprehended. He was not going to hold back at all against Supremacy Qing He, who had severely injured the Horn Clan's supremacy. Boom! When the two attacks collided, a shocking energy fluctuation immediately erupted. The loud sound of the collision caused some of the surrounding cultivators to be shaken to the point that they were unable to stabilize their minds. Quite a number of people were looking in their direction. When they saw this, the people of the Qingyun territory were dumbfounded. They suddenly realized that Supremacy Qing He's halberd had been broken by Night Sorrow's spear. How is this possible? My immortal slaying war halberd. You deserve to die. The moment the immortal slaying war halberd in his hand was broken, Supremacy Qing He was stunned for a moment in disbelief before he flew into a rage. The immortal slaying war halberd had fought with him for several cycles, so they had a very deep relationship. But he did not expect it to be broken by Night Sorrow today. Even the artifact spirit inside had been destroyed by this attack. How could he not be furious? If you want to kill me, you need strength, not words. You should be a veteran supremacy, yet you don't even understand this. Night Sorrow looked at him coldly. While they were talking, he used his divine soul power to scan the others in the battle. The people of the Qingyun territory, who were now unstable, did not show their combat strength at all. Although the many cultivators of the heavenly realm could not suppress the other party, they were evenly matched for the time being. Jing Yun was fighting against the other half-step earthly supremacy of the Qingyun territory, and she vaguely had the upper hand. Speaking of which, the Myriad Sword sect was in the most sorry state in the heavenly realm. He had sacrificed another half-step earthly supremacy to pin down the Qingyun territory, but he was beaten back repeatedly. At this moment, Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to Little Seven, Restriction Breaker Hammer, go and help Brother Wan. Okay. Don't worry. With our help, he won't be so passive anymore. Little Seven responded and flew to Myriad Sword sect's side with the Restriction Breaker Hammer. With their help, the master of the Myriad Sword sect immediately smiled. He glanced at Yi Shan and continued to fight. Supremacy Qing He, who was ridiculed by Night Sorrow, was completely enraged. His veins were bulging, and he directly ignited the power of his bloodline and fought with his life on the line. Junior. Die. This is not your time yet. After Qing he ignited his bloodline power, he put away the broken halberd and used his speed to close in on Night Sorrow. He was ready to engage in close combat. Close combat, huh? Come on. I'm not afraid of you. Night Sorrow, who was very confident in his close combat ability, saw through Supremacy Qing He's intentions and was not afraid at all. On the contrary, he was quite excited. He put away the golden heavenly halberd and fought with his opponent. Clan M. Chapter 3053. Junior. You overestimate yourself. Seeing that Night Sorrow had chosen to fight him head-on, a sinister smile appeared on Supremacy Qing He's face. At the same time, he roared inwardly, Green Cloud Myriad Transformations Art. He instantly increased the strength of his body by dozens of times and started fighting with Night Sorrow. As a half-step earthly sovereign, Supremacy Qing He's strength was about the same as Night Sorrow's. It was just that his body was slightly weaker. However, after using the Green Cloud Myriad Transformations Art, he instantly gained the upper hand. This was because the Green Cloud Myriad Transformations Art was a divine ability passed down in the Green Cloud territory. How did the strength of Supremacy Qing He's body increase so much in such a short period of time? Night Sorrow, who had been fighting with him for a while, frowned and used the sea serpent's eye to observe. He immediately saw something that normal eyes could not see. The surface of Supremacy Ching He's body was covered in a layer of green energy runes. In the subsequent attacks, Night Sorrow confirmed that it was this layer of green energy runes that was taking effect. His melee attacks were basically all blocked by these energy runes. Therefore, they did not have much effect. What an amazing ultimate technique. Or perhaps, you're using a divine ability? After resisting for a while, Night Sorrow looked at Supremacy Ching He and said. For the time being, he really had no way of breaking through his opponent's defense in melee combat. He could only passively take a beating. Humph. You have a good eye. But what can you do? Our Green Cloud Territory's divine ability has an amazing defense. You have no way of breaking it. While suppressing Night Sorrow, Supremacy Ching He sent a voice transmission confidently. Your Green Cloud Territory's divine ability is indeed very powerful. But it's not invincible. It was obvious that the Green Cloud Territory's divine ability was to increase the cultivator's defense. However, the Godly Realm's divine ability was the sharpest attack. During the conversation, Night Sorrow, who was constantly thinking, knew that he did not have the chance to activate the Divine Finger or the mysterious Immortal Golden Slash in melee combat. Under such circumstances, he did not take out his Golden Heavenly Halberd. Instead, he started thinking about a new ultimate technique. After being suppressed by Supreme Ching He for about 100 breaths, Night Sorrow finally comprehended a new supreme technique amidst the other party's arrogant laughter. He channeled all the power of the Divine Finger into his fingertip. Then, he would use the power contained in his finger to fight against Paragon Ching He. After the power of the Divine Finger was channeled to his fingertips, Night Sorrow's next attack produced an immediate effect. He scratched one of Paragon Ching He's arms, leaving a bloody wound that was so deep that his bones could be seen. How is this possible? That's impossible. Supremacy Ching He had a look of disbelief on his face when Night Sorrow scratched his arm until it bled. What shocked him wasn't that he was injured, but that the divine ability of the Clear Sky Territory was broken. This was something he simply could not accept. Nothing is impossible. Since your defense has been breached, then just wait for your death. In the process of being suppressed, although Night Sorrow was passive, he relied on his strong fighting spirit to successfully resolve the opponent's attacks time and time again. At this moment, he was already able to breach the other party's defenses, so it did not take long for him to gain the upper hand in the battle. How is this possible? Could it be that he has already comprehended the Divine Finger of the Divine Realm's divine ability to perfection? He can change the way he uses it at will? During the battle, Supremacy Ching He frowned as he thought about this. However, no matter how he thought about it, it was useless. Because he was completely suppressed. How dare you get distracted while fighting me? Night Sorrow, who knew that his opponent was letting his imagination run wild, roared and attacked again. This time, not only did Night Sorrow use his finger to channel the Divine Finger, but he also cast the Divine Essence trapping formation. He trapped Supremacy Ching He within it. Junior. You're always so overconfident. Let's see how you're going to die. Logically speaking, the trapped Supremacy Ching He should have been in despair. However, he did not. Instead, he burst into a confident grin. Then, Supremacy Ching He summoned a battle pet that was about as strong as him in the enclosed space. This battle pet was a tall white ape. The white ape had 8 arms, and each of them held a weapon. After being summoned, the white ape roared at the sky and cooperated with Supremacy Ching He to launch a fierce attack on Night Sorrow. This isn't going to be easy. In a one-on-one battle, Night Sorrow could easily suppress Supremacy Ching He. However, now that he summoned the white ape, it was a 2-on-1 battle. In an instant, Night Sorrow was once again suppressed. He felt a little helpless as he murmured to himself. At this moment, the other people in the Divine Realm were also evenly matched with the other party. They were vaguely in a passive position. The only one who had the upper hand was the Myriad Sword Sect. With the help of the restriction-breaking hammer and Little Seven, he was suppressing the other party's half-step earthly sovereign. Therefore, Night Sorrow immediately sent a voice transmission to the Myriad Sword Sect. Brother Juan, I'm placing all my hopes on you in this battle. Cooperate with the restriction-breaking hammer and Little Seven and quickly kill your opponent. Then come and help me. Don't worry. We'll be able to finish him off very soon. While the Myriad Sword sect sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow, he unleashed his strongest fighting spirit. He transformed into a sword and fought with the other party. However, although he had the upper hand, it was still difficult for him to kill the other party in a short time. What should I do? The Myriad Sword sect, who knew that Night Sorrow was fighting against two people at once, was extremely anxious. However, there was nothing he could do. At this moment, Little Seven suddenly said, "Forget it. I'll unleash my power once." How are you going to unleash your power? The Myriad Sword sect asked curiously. You'll know when you see it. Little Seven sighed, and the tower suddenly erupted with a bright light that filled the sky. These rays of light quickly gathered together. It formed a transparent human body. After the energy gathered into a human body, its strength was similar to that of a half-step earthly sovereign. Then, it did not continue to help the Myriad Sword sect. Instead, it rushed to Night Sorrow's side. You're Little Seven? Yi Shang asked doubtfully when he saw the performance of the ability to measure his body. That's me. But this time, I've used up a lot of my accumulated power for hundreds of thousands of years. You'll have to compensate me later. Little Seven said faintly. Don't worry. I'll leave most of the gains this time to you. Night Sorrow said with a smile. If Little Seven had not unleashed his power at the critical moment, their heavenly realm territory would really have to withdraw from this small grotto heaven. Now, they had the confidence to fight. It's not just the battle in front of us. During the fight for fortuitous opportunities, I'll also absorb a lot of energy. Otherwise, it'll be very difficult to make up for the consumption this time. Little Seven said and continued, I'll help you restrain the white ape. You continue to fight with supremacy Qing He. Remember, end the battle quickly. I won't be able to hold on for long. Don't worry. I'll kill him as soon as possible. Night Sorrow said. Then, he added, as for the energy, you can absorb as much as you want. Clan M. Chapter 3054. Haha. Since you've said that, anything is negotiable. Little Seven replied cheerfully and started fighting the 8-armed white ape. Strangely, after the battle started, Little Seven, who was originally in his human form, suddenly transformed into the 8-armed white ape. The 8-armed white ape fighting him was completely enraged by Little Seven and started attacking him crazily. However, Little Seven, who had transformed into the 8-armed white ape, was not afraid of the 8-armed white ape at all and easily blocked its attacks. Seeing that Little Seven was temporarily holding off the 8-armed white ape, Night Sorrow felt a little relieved. However, he knew very well that Little Seven would not be able to hold on for long. The Myriad Sword sect would also not be able to withstand the other party's half-step earthly supremacy. Therefore, when facing Paragon Qing He again, Night Sorrow unleashed all his combat power and fought him crazily. This time, Paragon Qing He's defense was no longer unbreakable in close combat. Not long after the battle started, he was forced into a passive position. After being suppressed by Night Sorrow, Paragon Qing He, who was in danger of losing his life at any moment, looked at the others and realized that both sides were evenly matched. The other battles were very tense, and they were not progressing as quickly as his side. He had wanted to call for help, but when he realized that there was no one to call for help, he suddenly had an ominous feeling. He thought to himself, that little B** starred is much stronger than I expected. There's nowhere to run to in the grotto heaven. What should I do? How dare you get distracted? Die. Night Sorrow, who realized that Paragon Qing He was starting to think of a way out, still had the upper hand. With a loud roar, he broke one of Paragon Qing He's arms. After losing half of his arm, Paragon Qing He let out a beast-like roar. His brows were filled with resentment. However, he quickly put away his resentful expression. He sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow. Actually, we don't have to resort to violence to solve this matter. We can definitely talk about it. Oh. What do you want to talk about? Night Sorrow asked in return. His attacks didn't stop for even a moment. Don't continue to kill us. If you let us go, I'll secretly teach you the Qingyun territory's inherited mystical ability, the Qingyun myriad transformations art. After Paragon Qing he said that Night Sorrow was still attacking him. He continued, I can swear that what I've imparted to you is the true divine ability of inheritance. There is absolutely no falsehood in it. You've already mastered the God's finger. If you learn the myriad transformations, you'll definitely be able to fuse them together to create a new and powerful mystical ability. It's also a good thing for the upcoming fight for the opportunity. Oh. Why do you say that? We can really do it. Hearing Paragon Qing He's words, Night Sorrow was a little tempted. The most precious thing in every territory was the inheritance of the divine ability. Night Yi was the myriad sword myriad transformations, Night God. However, he was not a child. He continued to attack the other party during the conversation. However, it will be very painful for me to pass on the inheritance to you privately. If the people in the territory find out, I will definitely die a horrible death. While we're fighting, I'll secretly teach you. Also, you have to promise not to use this mystical ability in front of the cultivators of the Qingyun territory. How about that? Supremacy Qing he bargained with him. He was clearly a coward who was afraid of death. Humph. You're about to be destroyed, so what right do you have to bargain? Night Sorrow snorted in disdain and said, immediately swear a heavenly Tao oath to teach me the mystical ability. As for me, I won't make any oaths to restrict myself. However, I can promise that I'll try my best not to let the people of the Qingyun territory know about this. That's great. Paragon Qing he replied and immediately swore a heavenly Tao oath. Then, he secretly taught the myriad transformations art to Night Sorrow. After learning the myriad transformations art, Night Sorrow had already mastered 3 mystical abilities. However, he did not have the time to study it now. He sent a voice transmission to Paragon Qing He and said, how do you think we should end this battle? There's a way. I'll pretend to lose to you and let you capture me. After you capture me, you can kill all the people of the Qingyun territory present here. Then, you can let me go. Paragon Qing he sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. In order to survive and not expose what had happened today, he had really made up his mind. In order to survive, you're really despicable and shameless. Night Sorrow said disdainfully, but he did not object. After all, Paragon Qing he had already used the myriad transformations art to buy his life. In the ensuing battle, Paragon Qing he was indeed captured by Night Sorrow, just as he said. Then, the 8-armed white ape was also recalled. Without the 2 top combatants, Paragon Qing he and the 8-armed white ape, the strength of the Qingyun territory decreased by about 30% in an instant. How could they resist the attacks of the people of the heavenly realm? After Night Sorrow joined the battle, the people of the Qingyun territory were quickly suppressed. However, they were not as humble as Paragon Qing He. They had no intention of surrendering at all. In the end, they were all sucked into the eternal divine tower. This time, they were transformed into laws and essences. Little Seven absorbed all of them and did not leave them for Nie Zhonglin. This was because he had consumed a lot of energy at a critical moment and needed these to make up for it. After wiping out the people of the Qingyun territory, Night Sorrow let Paragon Qing He out. He said, you can leave now. All right. I'll leave right away. Paragon Qing He nodded and bowed. Then, he said, please teleport me out. Jing Yun, let him go. Night Sorrow glanced at Jing Yun. Let him go? Jing Yun, who usually obeyed Yi Shang's every word, was surprised when she heard this. It was not only her. The others in the heavenly realm were also puzzled. Seeing everyone's reaction, Night Sorrow continued, "Let him go, and I'll explain the cause and effect of this matter." "All right. You can leave now." When Jing Yun heard this, she immediately opened the passage to the small grotto heaven and let Paragon Ching He out. After Paragon Ching He left, Night Sorrow immediately told them about the Qingyun myriad transformations art. Hearing this, everyone in the heavenly realm came to a realization and felt that it was appropriate. At this moment, Night Sorrow said with some doubt, "Actually, I think there's something fishy about this matter. They clearly know that they can enter but not leave the small grotto heaven, and it's very difficult to kill the cave master. It's very easy for them to be trapped in the small grotto heaven, so why would they come here with blind confidence? That's indeed the case. Maybe they have a way to leave the small grotto heaven? Or maybe it's because of something else?" Xiao Tianxian made a random analysis, but he did not give any useful information. Yi Shang and the others didn't pursue the matter. After chatting for a while, Night Sorrow said, "It's better to enjoy together than to enjoy alone. Next, I'll impart the Qingyun myriad transformations art to everyone. Clan M." Chapter 3055. Haha. Brother Yi is really generous. If an ordinary person obtained such a good thing, they would definitely hide it. There are very few people who are so generous to share it. When Night Sorrow was about to share the Clear Cloud Thousand Transformations art, Myriad Sword Sect immediately laughed and praised. Everyone is on the same side. There's nothing that can't be shared. Night Sorrow said with a smile and continued, "It's the same as the God's finger. I'll teach it one by one. After everyone learns it, try your best to comprehend and fuse the two divine abilities. Strive to fuse them into a new absolute art." "Good. Don't worry. With the God's finger as a precedent, after we learn the Clear Cloud Thousand Transformations art, we will definitely have great gains," Murong Ji Lu said confidently. In today's battle, if not for everyone comprehending a new absolute art from the God's finger, they would definitely not have been able to resist the cultivators of the Clear Cloud territory for so long. Since they had tasted the sweetness, they also had the mood and motivation to continue studying. "Changlin, go first." In recent years, Nia Zhonglin had been staring at the screen and did not cultivate much. Night Sorrow was the first to impart the Clear Cloud Thousand Transformations art to him. After teaching, Night Sorrow looked at Nia Zhonglin and said, "Changlin, the energy absorbed by the Eternal Divine Tower this time is all used to repair itself. So, you need to postpone the matter of you advancing to the supreme stage. After everyone finishes learning, I'll let the restriction-breaking hammer stare at the screen. Let's all cultivate together." "All right. I have to catch up with the progress too." In the battle just now, the combat strength that Nie Zhonglin displayed was already a certain gap with everyone. At this moment, he was ready to work hard to catch up. Go and fuse. I heard that the Eternal Supreme World's divine abilities can be fused infinitely. It's fine if it's just 2 or 3, but if you fuse too many, it will be a test of your comprehension. It shouldn't be difficult for you to fuse 2 divine abilities now. You can add your own comprehension of cultivation into it. Night Sorrow instructed Nie Zhonglin and continued to teach the Clear Cloud Thousand Transformations art to the others. After teaching, Night Sorrow rested for a while and began to study the fusion of the 3 divine abilities. About 2 years' time, he fused a new absolute art. This was a very sharp spear technique. The offensive power of the Divine General Finger, the defensive power of the Green Cloud Mantra, the speed of the Shantian's Secret Shadow, and the battle experience in his head were all combined into one. Night Sorrow eventually named this spear technique, Qingxian Godly Spear Technique. After this move was fused, Night Sorrow decided not to use the spear arts that he had comprehended or fused in the past. This was because the Qingxian Godly Spear Technique was the essence of what he had learned in the past. He had integrated all his previous understandings into it. If I were to fight another round with Qingxian Prime, I should be able to win even more easily. After fusing the Azure Profound Divine Spear Technique, Night Sorrow practiced it a few times in his mind and confirmed that it was much stronger than the immortal golden slash. However, the others were still fusing their own unique skills, so he didn't make any noise. He calmly stayed where he was and tried to figure out the other absolute arts, but he didn't gain much. Not long after, the male hammer of the prohibition-breaking hammer reminded him, Night Sorrow, another cultivator has shown up. Looking at their strength, they should be very strong. Oh. Let me see. Night Sorrow, who had been awakened, immediately looked at the screen. The group of people in the screen did look very strong. Moreover, one of them seemed to have the strength of an earthly sovereign. They should be from the heavenly owl territory and are our sworn enemies. The one leading them should be an earthly sovereign. Logically speaking, an earthly sovereign would be suppressed to the level of a half-step earthly sovereign in the supreme space. However, I think this group of people must have the means to break through the grotto heaven. They are definitely not to be trifled with. Night Sorrow said with a frown as he thought of Mu Tianai, who had been killed. Tianshao territory was one of the 4 holy lands of the eternal supreme world. Moreover, both sides had old and new grudges. If they encountered each other, there would definitely be a battle. The current strength of the heavenly realm was definitely not a match for Tianshao territory. Other than an earthly sovereign, Tianshao territory also had 5 half-step earthly sovereigns, more than 10 upper earthly sovereigns, and more than 20 ordinary sovereigns. With such a lineup, let alone the heavenly realm, any other territory would not dare to say that they would have the upper hand. Their strength is really strong. Xiong Chui exclaimed. He could faintly feel a trace of pressure towards the earthly sovereigns of Tianshao territory. We'll try our best to avoid them. Moreover, I think they're after the opportunity in the sky above the grotto heaven. Otherwise, they wouldn't have used such a lineup. Night Sorrow looked at the cultivators of Tianshao territory and analyzed their movements. The opportunity in the sky above the 3,000 grotto heavens was useless to an earthly sovereign. The earthly sovereigns of Tianshao territory had brought so many sovereigns here. They were obviously up to something big. Hearing this, Xiong Chui, who was originally a little afraid of the earthly sovereigns of Tianshao territory, suddenly said, "If there's a big battle in the winter, can we try and get a share of it? If we can get something that's useful to earthly sovereigns, then that's a good idea, but it's too dangerous. But now that you mention it, I'm really tempted. When the time comes, we'll observe the situation carefully. If there's a chance, we'll give it a shot." When Night Sorrow heard Xiong Chui's words, he pondered for a moment and thought of a way to pull a tooth out of the tiger's mouth. Anyway, the realm of the gods was currently the enemy of the entire world. He was not afraid of offending anyone. When the people of the realm of the gods woke up from their cultivation, it would be very close to the opportunity. At this time, Night Sorrow told them about snatching the food from the tiger's mouth. Hearing Night Sorrow's suggestion, the people of the realm of the gods frowned. Although they were tempted, they felt that if they attacked the earthly sovereigns, they might be killed. Here's what I'm thinking. I'll use the resources in the 3,000 grotto heavens to advance to the level of a sovereign. Then, I'll go after the good stuff in the grotto heavens. Night Sorrow said, then continued, but this matter requires everyone's cooperation. Because of the importance of war, I have to advance to the level of a sovereign in the shortest time possible. I need everyone to fight for resources for me. That's not a problem. Helping Brother Yi to advance into the supremacy stage, wasn't this something that we've already agreed on long ago? When he heard Night Sorrow's words, Jin Xian's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. The other cultivators of the realm of the gods were also filled with fighting spirit. However, before the opportunity came, another group of cultivators arrived in the grotto heavens controlled by Jing Yun. These people were from the Azure territory, and the leader was Lan Xian from the Azure territory. After arriving in the grotto heavens, Yuan Fengshui wanted to greet Lan Xian. But at this time, Lan Xian sneered and said, "I didn't expect to meet you here." Chapter 3056. Blue Heart's tone was provocative, and there was a mocking smile on her face. Her attitude was very playful, not like friends greeting each other, but more like enemies meeting. When Blue Heart had cooperated with the people of the God world, they had treated her well and allowed her to advance. That was until Night Sorrow had a conflict with Fairy Yu Yen and the others of the Moon's Shadow territory in the square where the finals were held. Blue Heart had parted ways with Night Sorrow and the others in front of everyone. The people of the God world were very unhappy with such an attitude. Yuan Fengxue, who had wanted to greet her amiably, raised his eyebrows and sneered, "Blue Heart. Blue Heart. Back then, my territory in the God realm took good care of you during the battle for Providence. Is this your attitude when you meet us? Haha. I'm a sovereign. Do I need to be nice when I meet you ants of the sovereign realm?" Blue Heart laughed out loud after she finished speaking. Some of the supreme beings standing behind him started laughing too. Their laughter was very loud and ear-piercing. The people of the God world glanced around. Including Blue Heart, there were a total of 12 sovereigns in the Azure territory. There was even a half-step earthly sovereign among them. Blue Heart, you're really an ingrate. You've become a sovereign, and you even came with a group of sovereigns. Do you think you're so great? Master Wan Jian glanced sideways at Blue Heart. I've become a sovereign. I'm not the same kind of person as you. Blue Heart laughed disdainfully when she heard Master Wan Jian's words. She looked at Night Sorrow and said, "Night Sorrow. You were the champion of the Battle of Providence that day. Now, you can hand over the champion's reward and the replica of the Eternal Divine Tower. If I remember correctly, that replica should be an earthly sovereign artifact. A sovereign ant like you can't protect it." In her opinion, she had more than 10 sovereigns on her side, while the people of the God world had participated in the Battle of Providence. There was no sovereign at all. The difference in strength between the two sides was like heaven and earth. Dominator rank ants? After Blue Heart finished speaking, Night Sorrow revealed a trace of a cold smile on his face. Since the ruler is an ant, why don't you, a supreme rank expert, fight with a dominator rank ant like me? If you win, I'll give you everything you want. Haha. Night Sorrow, I know that you are a person with great luck, and you have the ability to fight across realms. But don't you think it's ridiculous for you to say something like that at this time and place? Lon Xian sneered and pointed behind her. Today, there are so many Supremes in the Azure territory. They're here to do something big. I don't have time to argue with you. Hand it over immediately. Otherwise, all of you will die. You're really a heartless woman. Since that's the case, we have nothing more to say. Let's see who's better. Night Sorrow took out the golden heavenly halberd and held it horizontally. Infuriated, he transmitted his voice to the others in the divine world. Attack. There's no need to be merciful when dealing with such people. Of course, we won't be merciful to her. The myriad sword sex people immediately replied to Night Sorrow. The people of Azure territory looked down on them with disdain. They didn't even put them in their eyes. In fact, they didn't put them in their eyes either. After all, they had defeated the Green Cloud territory and obtained their sacred art. Compared to Azure Sky territory's lineup, Azure territory's lineup could only be described with one word: weak. However, the people of Azure territory obviously didn't think so. Seeing that Night Sorrow had the attitude to fight, Azure territory's leader, Lan Su, raised his eyebrows in disdain and sneered. "Junior. You still want to fight with us? Who gave you the courage? Kneel down and kowtow to admit your mistakes. Otherwise, you won't be able to die even if you want to." "We want to die? Of course, it's impossible. Because the ones who will die are you." Yi Shang bellowed and unleashed an immortal mystical gold slash at Lan Su. He was not going to use this move after he had merged the Qingxian Godly Spear technique, or rather, the Qingxian Godly Spear. However, he felt that he didn't need to use his strongest technique against Lan Su. "Oh. Ignorant junior, you dare to attack me? It seems like you really don't know what a half-earthly sovereign is." As Azure Territory's #1 expert, Lan Su's heart had always been filled with flattery. His self-confidence was bursting. Seeing that Night Sorrow was about to attack, Lan Su waved his hand casually, wanting to slap Night Sorrow to death. The person who wanted to slap me to death last time has already been slapped to death by me. It seems like you want to repeat the same mistake. Lan Su was still so arrogant in the battle, and Night Sorrow was completely enraged. At the same time that he attacked with the mysterious immortal golden slash, he suddenly formed a divine vitality trap array and trapped Lan Su within it. Then, he suddenly attacked with the slash. Boom! Lan Su, who didn't use his full strength, didn't expect Night Sorrow to be able to unleash an attack that wasn't inferior to his own. Due to his carelessness, he was immediately sent flying and crashed heavily into the hard stone wall of the small hollow. Your so-called half-earthly sovereign is just a so-so. You can't even take one hit. Night Sorrow sent Lan Su flying, which shocked everyone in Azure territory, especially Lan Xian, who looked as if she had seen a ghost. She knew Lan Su's strength very well. She muttered, "This is impossible. How is this possible? How many years has it been, and he has already reached this level?" Under Azure territory's full nurturing, Lan Xian had quickly advanced to the earthly sovereign level, which made her extremely proud. However, when she saw Yi Shan's battle prowess, the pride in her heart was instantly shattered. Originally, she thought that she was already ranked first among those who had participated in the Battle of Providence. Hee. There are many things that you think are impossible. Come, let's fight. At this time, Jin Xian suddenly appeared in front of Lan Xian, ready to fight. You? Do you think you can humiliate me? Seeing Jin Xian in front of her, Lan Xian was immediately enraged. When she came into contact with the people in the realm of the gods, she knew that Jin Xian was the weakest in the realm of the gods. Now, they had actually sent the weakest one to fight her. Wasn't this a slap in the face? But that's fine too. I'll kill you one by one. Let's see if you have Night Sorrow's ability. Lan Xian shouted, and then the battle intent in her body completely exploded as she began to fight Jin Xian. Seeing that Jin Xian and Lan Xian were fighting, Night Sorrow reminded him, "Jin Xian, use more of your merged superpowers. You don't have an advantage in terms of cultivation level, but your understanding of superpowers is definitely not something that she can compare to. Brother Yi, don't worry. I won't lose this battle." Jin Xian replied to Night Sorrow, and then used his newly merged superpower on Lan Xian. Clan M. Chapter 3057. Jin Xian's attack was a combination of the Divine Finger, the Green Cloud Thousand Transformations art, and the Golden Crow's bloodline talent. He had yet to name it. With this attack, tens of thousands of rays of golden light appeared in the air. These rays of golden light were Jin Xian's unique golden flames. These golden flames contained sharp sword rays that the Golden Crow's flames did not have before. These sword rays came from the Divine Finger. Furthermore, these sword rays had been strengthened by the Green Cloud Thousand Transformations art, so they were extremely tough. Facing this attack, Blue Heart was originally filled with arrogance. However, after choosing to face it head-on, she immediately realized that she was wrong. She, who had already become a supreme being, took this attack head-on, and her body was immediately pierced by the sword rays. If it wasn't for her good luck that her dantian wasn't hit, she would have been crippled immediately. How is this possible? Isn't he the weakest in the realm of the gods? How did he become so strong? Blue Heart looked at Jin Xian in disbelief. She had become so pathetic in an instant. Upon closer inspection, she realized that Jin Xian's aura was not any weaker than hers. Although he was only half a step away from becoming a supreme being. What the hell is going on? Blue Heart screamed in her heart. She could not understand how Jin Xian could become so strong in such a short time. What? Can't believe what is happening. You will soon understand that a heavenly dragon is not the same as an ant. We are completely different. After Jin Xian severely injured Blue Heart, he became even more confident and continued to attack Blue Heart. While Blue Heart was fighting Jin Xian, she realized that the other people in the Azure territory were also being suppressed. Even the strongest person in their territory, Lan Su, was completely suppressed by Night Sorrow. He could not fight back at all. If he had been hit once, it might have been due to luck. However, if he was continuously suppressed, it was a reflection of his strength. How? Seeing that everyone in Azure territory was being suppressed, Blue Heart had a look of disbelief on her face as her brows furrowed. She wanted to say something, but her mind was blank. She could not say anything. She knew that if she had not been mocked, the people in the realm of the gods would not have attacked her. However, it was too late now. If she did not think of a solution, everyone in the Azure territory would be killed. This made Blue Heart feel despair. Blue Heart was being suppressed by Jin Xian and didn't know what to do. The first person in Azure territory, Lan Su, had completely collapsed. Under Night Sorrow's suppression, he shouted, "Stop, all of you stop. Everything that happened today was a misunderstanding." Misunderstanding? You killed all of us. Is this a misunderstanding? Night Sorrow replied coldly as he waved the golden heavenly halberd in his hand. In today's battle, he did not display his strongest Qingxian godly spear technique, but he still easily suppressed his opponent. Night Sorrow was quite satisfied with this result. At this time, he glanced at the people in the divine world and found that their eyes were locked on Lan Su's face. He immediately understood what these people were thinking. They wanted the Azure territory's divine ability. At this moment, Master 10,000 Swords transmitted his voice, "Hee. Divine abilities were good stuff. If they hand over the Azure territory's divine ability, it's not impossible for us to let them go. Don't worry, I know what to do." When it comes to divine abilities, no one would complain about having too many of them. Night Sorrow replied with a smile. But at this time, Lan Su sighed and said, "Stop fighting. Stop fighting. If you continue to fight, I'll die. Our Azure territory offended our friends from the divine world. This is our fault. We're willing to compensate." "Oh? What are you willing to compensate?" Night Sorrow put away the golden heavenly halberd and asked coldly. In the small grotto heaven, the other party would not be able to escape. He did not have to worry about that at all. "We're willing to pay 1,000,000 divine crystals. And a half-earthly sovereign divine artifact. If you want a woman, we can give you Blue Heart. Blue Heart is the first beauty in Azure territory." Lan Su continued to speak as he pondered. He knew that if Night Sorrow stopped, it meant that they had a chance to live. Overlord. Hearing Lan Su's words, Blue Heart's expression changed immediately. She did not expect the Overlord to use her as a bargaining chip immediately. At this time, before Night Sorrow could say anything, Wan Jianzong said with disdain, "Our divine world territory does not need trash as compensation." It was obvious that he did not care about Blue Heart and the half-earthly sovereign divine artifact. After all, compared to divine abilities, they were indeed trash. Lan Xian's expression had already changed, but when she heard the 10,000 Sword Sect's words, she was so angry that her face darkened. She had never been treated like this in her life. "What about you? We don't want you. Your bargaining chip is not sincere at all. Prepare to die. You brought all of this upon yourselves." Wan Jianzong said with disdain. When they saw an old friend, they had a good impression of her. They did not expect Blue Heart, who had become a sovereign, to be so arrogant. This kind of feeling made him very uncomfortable. "Don't fight. Everything can be discussed. Tell us what you want. As long as we can do it, we'll consider it." Seeing that the people from the Divine World territory were about to attack again, Lan Su scolded Blue Heart and told her to shut up. Hearing this, Wan Jianzong looked at Night Sorrow, and Night Sorrow nodded at him. Wan Jianzong immediately understood and said, "Give us the divine ability of the Azure territory. We can exchange it for your lives." Otherwise, your souls will be destroyed. What? You want the divine ability of the Azure territory? Overlord, you can't give it to us. We'd rather die than be the sinners of the territory. After Wan Jianzong finished speaking, one of the supremes of the Azure territory shouted. The overlord of the Azure territory, Lan Su, was silent. He was in a fierce battle in his heart. Overlord. Overlord, you can't agree to this. We can't let the divine ability leak out. It's the capital of the Azure territory in the eternal sovereign world. Seeing that Lan Su was silent and struggling in his heart, even Blue Heart, who was unhappy with him, tried to persuade him. The people from the divine world territory did not speak, giving him enough time to think. After about 30 breaths, Night Sorrow said coldly, I won't say anything else. Make your choice. Lan Su, who was silent, was about to speak when he heard Night Sorrow's words, but he stopped. He looked around and saw Blue Heart and the others. Then, he looked at Night Sorrow and said, I can teach you the divine ability. But I have a request. That is, you can only let me go. Kill everyone else. Clan M. Chapter 3058. What? Overlord, what do you mean by that? Hearing Lan Su's words, everyone in the Azure territory was furious. What I mean is that if I go out alone, no one will know about this. So that more people won't talk. Lan Su said coldly and ran to Night Sorrow's side and said, Night Sorrow. I'll cooperate with you and kill them all. Then I'll teach you the divine ability. None of them, including Blue Heart, had learned a complete set of divine abilities. Only I have the complete divine ability. All right. Attack. Facing Lan Xian and the others, Night Sorrow, Xiao Tianxian, Myriad Sword Sect and the others did not hesitate and directly attacked them. With Lan Su's cooperation, everyone in the Azure territory was quickly killed. Before her soul was destroyed, Lan Xian viciously cursed Lan Su. However, Lan Su did not care at all. To him, staying alive was more important than anything else. Actually, there were definitely cultivators who had integrity and were not afraid of death, but they were definitely in the minority. Most cultivators would make the same choice as Lan Su when faced with such a situation. All right. The matter is more or less settled, we can begin. First, make a heavenly oath. After Little Seven sucked everyone in the Azure territory into the 7th level of the Eternal Divine Tower, Night Sorrow looked at Lan Su and said. Hearing this, Lan Su nodded with a serious expression and made a heavenly oath. Then, he taught the divine ability of the Azure territory to Night Sorrow. The divine ability of the Azure territory was called the Azure Sea. The name was very ordinary, but the aura it gave off was very vast. It could release waves that were tens of thousands of feet high. Night Sorrow had just learned it and understood that this divine ability's main advantage was its vast concept. As for the sea, it was just a surface. Very good. It's a very powerful divine ability. The power of the Azure Sea tide could only be sensed and not expressed. Yi Shan quietly experienced it for a moment and immediately understood the key point. Since Night Sorrow is satisfied with the divine ability, can you let me go? Lan Su saw that Night Sorrow was satisfied and immediately asked. Jing Yun, let him go. This Azure Sea is enough to exchange for his life. Night Sorrow looked at Jing Yun and said. All right. Jing Yun, who was already familiar with the path, nodded and looked at Lan Su. You can leave now. Good, good. Lan Su nodded and left the cave immediately. Why do I feel like there's something in his eyes? After Lan Su left, Xiao Tianxian immediately said with a frown. If it was anyone else who was forced to hand over their divine ability, they would be filled with hatred. It doesn't matter. The gap between us will only grow bigger and bigger. He won't be able to cause any trouble. Night Sorrow continued, come on. I will teach you the Azure Ocean. The move is only on the surface, you have to think about the power contained within it. That kind of power where the whole world is under one's control is very mysterious. Good. I'll give it a try. Master Wan Jian said eagerly. Sure. I'll impart it to you first. Night Sorrow smiled and began to impart the azure ocean to Master Wan Jian. At this time, Lan Su, who had left the cave, said with a sinister face, "This hatred, I must take revenge." After leaving the cave controlled by Jing Yun, he did not leave the cave. Instead, he waited for experts. He wanted to pay a price in exchange for experts from other territories to attack Night Sorrow and the others. Night Sorrow, who was not aware of Lan Su's plot, was still imparting the azure ocean to others. It didn't take long for everyone in the god world to learn the third divine ability. Night Sorrow, on the other hand, had 4, which was slightly stronger than the others. In terms of movement technique, he was much stronger than the others. However, if he imparted it casually, it might expose his supreme longevity. Therefore, he held back and did not teach it to others. After Night Sorrow finished imparting the divine ability, everyone in the divine realm, just like after they learned the Clear Cloud Thousand Transformations technique, cultivated and fused various divine abilities. After comprehending the force contained in the Azure Sea, their original attacks did not change, although the attack pattern did not change. However, there was an additional power that could swallow heaven and earth. Especially Night Sorrow's Qing Xian godly spear technique, it was like a surging sea, wave after wave. The improvement was huge. This azure ocean is really a good divine ability. My spear technique has become much stronger. After completely recovering from his cultivation, Night Sorrow saw Jing Yun looking at him and said with a smile. That's indeed the case. As expected, every territory's divine ability is not simple. I'm thinking, if one day we can fuse the myriad Tao. How magnificent would that be? After fusing 3 divine abilities, Jing Yun felt that her ultimate technique was as powerful as the mountains and seas. She immediately thought of fusing the myriad Tao. Hee. I feel that if we can truly fuse the myriad Tao, we won't have to be afraid of those terrifying creatures in the fog. Speaking of the myriad Tao, Night Sorrow immediately thought of those terrifying creatures that Supreme Longevity mentioned. In his heart, a great pressure suddenly rose. Jing Yun, who saw through Night Sorrow's thoughts, smiled and stroked his arm, saying, "Don't worry. The legendary Great Calamity hadn't even come yet. We have time." Yes. There's still time. But there shouldn't be much time left. We still have to improve our strength as soon as possible. I reckon that when the time comes, ordinary supreme beings will only be cannon fodder. While Night Sorrow sighed, the battle intent in his heart also completely bloomed. Then, everyone in the God Realm territory recovered from their cultivation one by one. Everyone's harvest was not bad. Wan Jianzong laughed and said, "In the future, I've decided not to leave Brother Ye's side. Wherever Brother Yi goes, I'll go. This way, sooner or later, I'll become the second expert in the eternal supreme world." Second expert? I also want to compete. Xiao Tianxian also made a rare joke. After the two of them finished speaking, Jing Yun, Murong Junlu, and the others also said in unison, "I also want to compete." Haha. You guys. Seeing everyone's performance, Night Sorrow's face revealed a trace of a smile. These friends in front of him had become his most precious wealth in the eternal supreme world. Then, everyone in the small grotto heaven chatted and laughed as they drank. Recently, they were either fighting or cultivating, and the pressure was relatively high. They felt that it was time for everyone to take a break. Boom. However, just as the wine was drunk, there was an incomparably loud sound in the sky above the grotto heaven. That's the sound. The opportunity from the heavens should have begun. Let's go out. Hearing this sound, Jing Yun suddenly raised her eyebrows and said, "Okay. Let's go out. Everyone, remember, no matter what, the most important thing is to protect yourself." When everyone flew up, Night Sorrow reminded them. When he flew to the sky above the small grotto heaven, he saw almost 10,000 cultivators. Without a doubt, these were all competitors. Moreover, the number of cultivators was still increasing. Genius remembered the address of this site in a second. Clan mobile version reading website. Chapter 3059. Many cave masters of the small grotto heavens, like the people of the god world, came out of their grotto heavens after hearing the commotion. In an instant, the sky above the 3,000 small grotto heavens became very lively. This is really a big scene. It's even fiercer than the battle for Providence. Looking at the sea of people in front of him, Master Wan Jian could not help but sigh. At the same time, a strong battle intent rose from his body. Hearing this, Yuan Fengshua snorted and said, "Of course it's much fiercer. Those who participate in the battle for Providence are all rulers. Now, they are basically all supremes, how can it be the same? Today's battle is far more dangerous than before. You should use your brain when fighting. Don't rush forward brainlessly, understand? Hee, I know. There are so many experts in front of us, I won't casually reveal any flaws." Master Wan Jian smiled at Yuan Fengshua. At this time, Knight Sorrow was also explaining some things to Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei. The scene in front of them was too big. After the battle, there would definitely be chaos. He had to explain some details clearly. After talking to the two girls, Knight Sorrow gathered everyone in the god world and said, "Resources are important, but safety is more important. If you encounter danger, give up the resources in front of you. The world is bustling for profit, and the world is bustling for profit. Most people are here to fight for opportunities. Sometimes, as long as you give up the fight, you shouldn't be targeted. Don't worry. Although everyone's cultivation is relatively low, their battle strength is not inferior to ordinary supremes. It's a bit arrogant to say that we will kill everyone. But if you want to give up the resources to protect yourself, there shouldn't be a problem." Xiao Tianxian understood Knight Sorrow's worry and quickly comforted him. When the battle starts later, if anyone encounters danger, directly enter the Eternal Divine Tower. The Eternal Divine Tower is an earthly supreme artifact. In the sky above the grotto heavens, no one can break through it. After that, Knight Sorrow said this and observed the state of the other cultivators. There were definitely more than 10,000 people here, and most of them were unfamiliar faces. Therefore, no one paid attention to them who came from the god world. Moreover, among them, only Jing Yun had the cultivation of supremes. Naturally, she was ignored by the surrounding cultivators. Some of the supreme beings present felt that these people in front of them were simply courting death. Many people had mocking looks on their faces, waiting to see them make a fool of themselves. Humph. Don't laugh at us. I don't even like you guys. Everyone else looked at him with disdain, and the myriad swords sect grumbled. Knight Sorrow smiled and comforted him, "It's okay. It would be great if they could truly fight. Our goal is to obtain resources and increase our strength. I'm not angry. Haha. Don't worry. I don't like them at all. In a few more years, all of them will be trash." Master Wan Jian said proudly, then continued, "Oh, right. Where are the 3 grotto heavens?" Wan Jianzong looked around, but he didn't see any sign of the grotto heaven. Hearing this, Jingyun replied, "The grotto heaven requires a teleportation array to enter. Anyone could use the teleportation matrix, but the armored zombie had no memory of what it would be like after entering it. However, he was extremely afraid of that teleportation array. I've never dared to take even half a step here. Let's discuss this matter at length. Get ready for battle. Looking at the scene before us, the opportunity should be coming soon. Although there are many cultivators in front of us, the 3,000 grotto heavens occupy a large enough space. The battle shouldn't be too intense at the beginning." At this time, Knight Sorrow continued to instruct. The only thing he was worried about was that the people of the heavenly realm would be in danger amidst the chaos. Boom! 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 As soon as Knight Sorrow's voice fell, there was a loud thunderclap in the void. After the thunderclap, a huge black hole suddenly appeared in the void. Looking up at the void, one could see that the black hole in the sky was bigger than the 3,000 grotto heavens combined. It covered a vast area. It's here. It's finally here. I don't know what kind of situation this opportunity will come in. Looking up at Night Sorrow in the void, he thought to himself. The black hole didn't make Night Sorrow wait for too long. Soon, the opportunity came. Among the things that came, there were sovereign law and earth sovereign law and earth sovereign law and earth sovereign divine artifacts, and various elixirs. The quality of these things were obviously better than some of the things in the eternal sovereign world. As time passed, these things slowly came down. However, some things stopped after a certain distance and didn't come down anymore. Everyone looked around and found that the higher the distance, the better the quality. How could they remain calm? As a few people flew up into the void, the others immediately flew up to fight for the opportunity. However, they found that flying up would be met with a strong force of imprisonment. The higher they flew, the more difficult it was. At this time, Xiong Hammer reminded Night Sorrow, the higher we go, the greater the pressure. I can see the restriction, but I don't have the ability to break it. The person who set up the restriction must be an earth sovereign or at least a heavenly sovereign. The Taoist rhyme of the restriction has a natural feeling. This is not something an earth sovereign can do. I guess this must be a senior from the eternal sovereign world who is contributing to the eternal sovereign world. But if you want to get good things, you have to prove your strength. Night Sorrow told the people of the God world and summoned Little Seven. He asked him to take care of everyone and continue to go up. His goal was the best resources. Naturally, he didn't want to fight with others underground. At this time, there were about 100 people who could reach the same height as Night Sorrow. These 100 sovereigns all had the strength of a half-step earth sovereign. A white-bearded sovereign, who was far away from Night Sorrow, saw Night Sorrow fly to such a height with the strength of a half-step earth sovereign. He couldn't help but shout, "Little brother, your cultivation is ordinary, but your strength is heaven-defying. In time, when you become a sovereign, I'm afraid you will become an invincible existence. Which territory are you from?" Yishang turned around and saw that the white-bearded prime was wearing a Taoist robe that was glittering with jewels. At this time, he was still at ease. Obviously, he still had the ability to go up. However, the old man was completely relaxed and unhurried. After glancing at him, Yishang was immediately shocked. Although the elder was a half-step to earthly sovereign, his true strength was about the same as Yu, earthly sovereign from the Moon's Shadow Estate. The strength of the two's auras was almost the same. With such strength, even Night Sorrow was no match for him. Night Sorrow cupped his fists politely and said, "Senior, you flatter me. I'm Night Sorrow from the God world. Clan M." Chapter 3060. In fact, when Night Sorrow spoke, he was already prepared to fight. After all, the realm of the gods was the enemy of the entire eternal supreme world. An expert with such strength must have come from a stronger territory. Haha. Little brother, don't be nervous. Seeing Night Sorrow's vigilance and fighting spirit, the old man with white eyebrows and a white beard smiled. He said, "I've heard of you. You are the champion of this battle of providence. With the strength you have shown so far, you really live up to your reputation. Among the sovereigns, you should be the first. I, Bai Mei Sanren, am very happy to meet such a talented junior like you." Bai Mei Sanren? Are you Senior Bai Mei Sanren? When he heard this name, the wariness between Yishang's brows immediately dissipated by quite a bit. He had heard of Bai Mei Sanren before. He was one of the 10 great itinerant men of the eternal supreme world. The 10 great itinerant men had followed Yan Hengshi or Yen Yen in their previous lives. However, they had all died in battle during the Great Tribulation. Now, they were all reincarnated. They were not interested in the eternal supreme world. Therefore, after reincarnating, they all announced that they had become itinerant men. Because of some of the powerful memories of their previous lives, their strength had increased very quickly. Although they were very strong, they had never attacked anyone in the eternal supreme world. Even when fighting for resources, they had only done so. The 10 of them were usually elusive, as if they were existences that only existed in legends. Night Sorrow did not expect to meet one today. "Ha, it's me." Bai Mei Sanren saw that Night Sorrow had heard of his name and smiled. At this time, Night Sorrow, who was collecting some earthly supreme rules and essences, asked curiously, "Senior, with your strength, why don't you go to the grotto to fight for better things?" "Haha. If I were to enter the grotto heaven alone, would have no chance at all. If I am sent in, even if I don't die, I will be crippled." After Bai Mei Sanren finished speaking, he smiled and asked, "Little brother Knight, are you also interested in the grotto?" "Of course. The Great Tribulation is coming. Who doesn't want to become stronger as soon as possible?" Night Sorrow sighed. In front of Bai Mei Sanren, he did not hide anything about the Great Tribulation. Hearing this, Bai Mei Sanren was startled and said, "It's coming again?" When he said this, his body trembled slightly. The battle back then was simply too tragic. Almost all the cultivators of the Eternal Supreme World had died in battle. If it weren't for the creatures in the foggy area being used to absorbing the energy in the foggy area and occupying the Eternal Supreme World, the myriad realms wouldn't have been able to grow at this time. Although it's cruel, it's coming again. These words were spoken by Senior Yen Heng's shadow. After Night Sorrow collected the earthly supreme law and essence in front of him, he continued to move up. Bai Mei Sanren, who had just collected a divine artifact, heard the name Yen Hengshe and his shoulders trembled. He asked, "Did you encounter Senior Yen Hengshe's shadow in the Battle of Providence? Did you hear about Yan's whereabouts from him?" Back then, Bai Mei Sanren followed Yan, but he was also in awe of Yen Hengshe. "Senior White Brow, are you an old acquaintance of Senior Yen?" Night Sorrow could clearly feel the excitement from Bai Mei Sanren's body, so he immediately asked. "And NB, yes. I am a general under Yen Hengshe. In the last Great Tribulation, we fought side by side." Bai Mei Sanren's eyes dimmed as he said, "I witnessed the scene of her being killed with my own eyes. I don't know if she has reincarnated. Senior Yen Hengshe once mentioned Senior Yen. He said that she was only seriously injured back then and did not die in battle. She should be recovering somewhere at this time." Night Sorrow could feel that Bai Mei Sanren was not lying, so he directly told him about Yen. "What? Not dead? That's great. That's great. What Yen Hengshe said can't be false." Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Bai Mei Sanren immediately laughed out loud. "It's just that Senior Yen Hengshe also said that none of the 3 in the fog area should be dead. Therefore, this Great Tribulation should be more difficult for our Eternal Supreme World to survive than the last one." At this time, Night Sorrow said with a frown. Thinking of what Yen Hengshe said, he once again felt that his strength was too weak. None of the 3 bastards from back then died? That's not fair. What about Yen Hengshe? So what? Is he okay? Bai Mei Sanren continued to ask. Senior Yen Hengshe has completely fallen in the battle back then. In the face of another Great Tribulation, we can only rely on Senior Yen and ourselves. Night Sorrow said helplessly. In the fog area, there were 3 supreme existences. However, there was only one territory in the divine realm. Moreover, the number of heavenly sovereigns and earth sovereigns was absolutely in the fog area. This battle was not going to be easy. Time. What our Eternal Supreme World lacks now is time. Bai Mei Sanren smiled bitterly and said, "In fact, the number of geniuses that have emerged in the Eternal Supreme World today is obviously more than back then. On the whole, the cultivation talent of cultivators was incomparable to that of the past. However, we lack time. I don't know when those 3 demons will start the war again. On the surface, it looks like our eternal Paragon realm is still going to lose this time. But how can we endure the fate of being slaughtered again and again? Therefore, at present, increasing our strength is very important. This is also the reason why I want to enter the grotto heaven, Yi Shang said. He did not hide his determination to increase his strength. Little brother knight, the fact that Yan Hengshi has said so much to you proves that he values you very much. Bai Mei Sanren's eyes flashed and said, why don't I be your guardian? Guardian? What's that? After collecting the Earth Sovereign's rules and essence, Knight Sorrow began to move up, looking for elixirs that could increase his strength. At present, his main goal was to advance to the Supreme Realm. After Knight Sorrow asked, Bai Mei Sanren said, in layman's terms, I'm a fighter. Whoever dares to deal with you, I will deal with them. I will protect you as you grow. And I will teach you some of the things I have mastered. Senior White Brow, this is not good. You have your own path, I can't delay you. When Yi Shang heard this, he immediately refused. It would be great to have White Brow and the other two as helpers, but he did not want a legendary figure to become a vassal. Then cooperate, I'm willing to cooperate with you. What you mean is that if you want to advance to the Supreme Realm, then enter the grotto heaven to seize the opportunity. When the time comes, let's do it together. At this time, Bai Mei Sanren continued. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Human mobile version reading website. Chapter 3061. Let's enter the grotto heaven and explore it together. Knight Sorrow said. He didn't want to owe the other party too much, as that would make his Taoist heart unstable. Haha. Since that's the case, I'll quickly snatch the resources for you to advance. After receiving Knight Sorrow's affirmative answer, Bai Mei Sanren immediately flew to a higher area. The height he flew at was obviously higher than anyone else present, and it immediately attracted a lot of attention. Most of the practitioners present had heard of Bai Mei Sanren's name, but none of them recognized him. For a moment, everyone was trying to guess his identity. Just as the crowd was discussing, Bai Mei Sanren started to throw good things at Knight Sorrow's location. Earthly sovereign resources, spiritual pills, divine veins. All of them were thrown at Knight Sorrow's location. Knight Sorrow naturally couldn't refuse such good intentions, so he thought to himself, if there's a chance in the future, I'll definitely make up for all of this. Then, he started to collect all kinds of good things. Bastard. If this goes on, all the good things will be taken by this kid. Absolutely not. Seeing that Knight Sorrow was continuously receiving resources thrown at him by Bai Mei Sanren, the 20 half-step earthly sovereigns who were flying at the same height as Knight Sorrow were all enraged. The height they could fly at was about the same as Knight Sorrow's. They couldn't reach Bai Mei Sanren's height at all. After Yu Xinghui spoke, 3 half-step earthly sovereigns from the Huiyue territory immediately flew toward Knight Sorrow, ready to snatch the resources thrown at him by Bai Mei Sanren. Little brother Knight Sorrow, if you let me be your protector, I'll naturally swat these flies away. Seeing the 3 half-step earthly sovereigns attack Knight Sorrow to snatch the resources, Yu Xinghui smiled. High up in the sky, Bai Mei Sanren smiled and said. It was obvious that he had expected this situation to happen. However, when he heard this, Yi Shang unexpectedly replied, don't worry, big brother. Just the 3 of them are not enough to threaten me. Junior. Aren't you a little too arrogant? Which territory are you from? Tell me your name. Yu Xinghui, a half-step earthly sovereign from the Huiyue territory, had a murderous look on his face. He was not pleased to see a half-martial highness taking all the good stuff here. However, before he attacked, he had to ask about the other party's background. If they were from the 4 great holy lands, he would not dare to offend them in the slightest. Knight Sorrow of the Heavenly Realm. Knight Sorrow naturally knew why the other party was asking for his name, but he didn't hold anything back. Ju He, Bai Mao, let's go and kill him together. If the one above makes a move, we'll fight together. That little bastard from the god world can't be allowed to live. Cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Upon hearing Knight Sorrow's words, Yu Xinghui, a half-step earthly sovereign from the Radiant Moon territory, immediately transmitted a message to the other two half-step earthly sovereigns. These two were from the Underworld Star Territory and the 100 Ninja Territory respectively. The Underworld Star Territory and the 100 Ninja Territory were among the top 10 Eternal Sovereigns. Back then, they had all attacked the Supreme Longevity. Upon hearing that Night Sorrow was from the God World, their hearts were filled with murderous intent. They all knew that Night Sorrow had taken the first place in this battle of Providence, so there was no room for him. Cut the weeds and eliminate the roots? You guys are so mighty. I hope that when the great calamity comes, you guys will still be so unyielding. Night Sorrow looked at the other party with a cold look on his face. Humph. What great calamity? Today is your calamity. Yu Xinghui snorted coldly and roared, "Attack!" At the same time, a light sword made of starlight appeared in his hand. The light sword was not very big, about 2 meters long. However, after it was taken out, it immediately lit up the entire sky. The aura it contained was extremely powerful. What a powerful divine weapon. If Brother Wan can get it, his strength will definitely increase by a lot. Yu Xinghui took out the light sword and slashed at Night Sorrow. His light sword was called the Starlight Sword. It was the same name as the long swords of the other people in the Starlight Territory. However, it was the highest grade sword in the territory. It was close to an earthly sovereign divine weapon. When it slashed an ordinary long sword, it felt like it could cut through iron like mud. Facing it, Night Sorrow had a strange thought in his mind. Then, he directly activated the 33 Heavens Battle Secret Technique and used the Qingxian Godly Spear Technique to fight with his opponent. The Qingxian Godly Spear Technique was different from some of the other spear techniques that Night Sorrow had. It was not just a simple attack. When it was used, it was like an endless rain falling on Yu Xinghui. Young man, you have some skills. No wonder you can make it to the end of the Battle of Providence. For a moment, Yu Xinghui, who was suppressed, was not anxious. This was because at this time, the other two half-earthly sovereigns, Juhi and 100 Eyes, attacked Night Sorrow at the same time. The other sovereigns, who were about the same height, were collecting resources while keeping an eye on the situation. They did not have any intention of attacking, but they were also keeping an eye out, hoping that no one would suddenly attack them. Don't call me a young man. Can't you see clearly who is stronger and who is weaker? Night Sorrow scolded Yu Xinghui disdainfully, then continued to attack him. The Qingxian Godly Spear Technique combined 4 superpowers. Especially after combining with the Azure Sea Tide, the attack was very powerful. It looked like a dense raindrop, but the momentum was really big, like the Overlord Spear. Yu Xinghui was quickly suppressed. After Juhi and 100 Eyes attacked, Night Sorrow scolded coldly, "Since you attacked me today, you should kill me directly. Otherwise, I will take your heads even if I have to go to the ends of the earth." Young man, you are too arrogant. The Eternal Supreme Realm is not a place for a young man like you to be fierce. Juhi, who had been scolded, showed a trace of disdain. Then, he took out a long and narrow saber and slashed at Night Sorrow. This saber was not as good as the Starlight Sword, but it was also very sharp. Facing him, Night Sorrow did not dare to be careless. While attacking Yu Xinghui, he kept dodging. After learning the Xiantian's secret shadow of the Jiu Xian territory, his speed was not inferior to any prime. The two of them attacked Night Sorrow at the same time, but they did not quickly suppress him. Yu Xinghui shouted, "100 Eyes, what are you waiting for? I am looking for an opportunity." The woman called 100 Eyes, while responding to Yu Xinghui, was not in a hurry to attack. When Night Sorrow and the two of them were extremely anxious, hundreds of eyes suddenly opened on her body. After these disgusting eyes were opened, Lin Fan opened his eyes. Suddenly, hundreds of black lights shot at Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow, who was not at a disadvantage, did not have the slightest fear of Yu Xinghui and Juhi's attack. However, this attack from 100 Eyes immediately caused a sense of danger to rise from the bottom of his heart. Chapter 3062. At the same time, 100 Eyes said sinisterly, 100 Eyes open, 10,000 gods slay. After chanting this incantation, the hundreds of black lights immediately attacked Night Sorrow as if they were controlled by a soul. Every single one of the 100 streaks of black light transformed into an extremely evil demon. After these things took shape, they immediately pounced on Night Sorrow and tore at his soul. It was as if they wanted to pull his soul out of his body. Even though Night Sorrow had the power to fight the heavens and the earth, he was still unable to withstand it. Facing such an evil attack, he felt a little uncomfortable. Haha. Little brother Night, how is it? Do you need me to help? After seeing 100 Eyes attack, Bai Mei Sanren immediately sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. He could see that Night Sorrow was struggling at this moment. No need. Night Sorrow, who was being suppressed, replied coldly, anger rising in his heart. This was the first time he felt like his soul was being pulled at, and he was completely disgusted. Humph. Are you angry? Be angry, I will let you suffer the baptism of death in your anger. What awaits you will be the destruction of your soul. At this moment, 100 Eyes, hundreds of eyes were staring at Night Sorrow, making one's scalp tingle. Eye technique. Being stared at by 100 Eyes, Night Sorrow felt uncomfortable in his heart. Soon, he realized that the crux of the problem lay in the eye technique and not the Qi, Mei, Wang, Liang, and Ba. At this moment, Yu Xinghui and Zhu He's attacks came one after another. Under the attacks of the three, Night Sorrow immediately felt the threat of death. In this crisis, he instantly calmed down. In his mind, 100 Eyes eye technique flashed. At the same time, he remembered some eye techniques that he had come into contact with. If he couldn't break the other party's eye technique, and Night Sorrow had already said everything, there was no need for Bai Mei Sanren to help. In the blink of an eye, Night Sorrow comprehended an eye technique that combined the god's finger. He roared, Supreme God Eye. In an instant, an extremely powerful beam of light shot out of his sea serpent eye. This beam of light was similar to the attack of the divine finger. However, it was used to counter eye techniques and divine soul attacks. After a beam of light shot out, it went straight for the 100 Eyes body. The beam of light immediately burned all of the 100 Eyes' eyes. The 100 Eyes of the 100 Eyes were hit by this attack and immediately shed 100 tears of blood. The demons and monsters she had used to restrain Yi Shan had all disappeared as well. In the blink of an eye. At this time, Yu Xinghui and Zhu He's attacks finally arrived. In the face of their attacks, Night Sorrow immediately used Mysterious Sky's secret shadow to dodge. At this moment of life and death, he no longer had the ability to hide the Mysterious Sky shadow. After using it, he directly dodged the attacks of the two people. Wasn't this movement technique the Profound Sky's secret shadow of the 9 profound territories? A genuine Shantian's secret shadow. How is this possible? Seeing Night Sorrow use the genuine Shantian's secret shadow, Yu Xinghui and Zhu He were both stunned. On the other hand, the 100-eyed at the side closed all of her eyes tightly. After being attacked by the Supreme God Eye, almost all of her eyes were destroyed. This was not only because Night Sorrow's attack was powerful, but also because she had failed to use her eye technique and suffered a terrifying backlash. Her eye technique was powerful, but it was also accompanied by great danger. As long as it was interrupted, she would suffer a serious backlash. I'll kill you first. Disgusting thing. After recalling the hundreds of eyes of the 100-eyed, Night Sorrow felt disgusted. With a loud roar, he used the mysterious Azure Divine Spear technique to attack. Although all of her eyes were sealed, the 100-eyed still had a trace of strength to fight back. With the help of Yu Xinghui and Zhu He, she temporarily resisted Night Sorrow's attack. However, as the battle continued, Night Sorrow gradually gained control of the situation. This was because he realized that although Yu Xinghui and Zhu He were very strong, they did not have any special skills. They did not seem to have any secret treasures on them. Experts with such strength do not have any secret treasures on them. This is strange. After Night Sorrow confirmed that the three of them did not have any secret treasures on them, he began to fight more fiercely. Soon, the three of them were completely suppressed. Seeing that Night Sorrow was beginning to gain the upper hand, Bai Mei and the other two suddenly said, "The three of them are just doppelgangers. But their real bodies are not far away. If I'm not wrong, they followed someone into the grotto heaven." "What? They are all doppelgangers." Hearing Bai Mei Sanren's words, Night Sorrow was surprised. However, the 100-eyed and the rest's performance soon confirmed Bai Mei and the other two's words. Seeing that they could not resist Night Sorrow's attack, the 100-eyed shouted maliciously, "Junior, just you wait. This is not over. Even if I have to chase you to the ends of the earth, I will dig out your eyeballs. I think it won't be long before we meet again." Bai Mei Sanren guessed that the three's real bodies were in the grotto heaven. Night Sorrow felt that his guess was reliable. The three of them could not have only sent their doppelgangers to fight for the opportunity. When the doppelgangers were in danger, the real bodies did not come to help. It was very likely that they were fighting in the grotto heaven and had no time to care. Otherwise, the three's real bodies would have come to kill them. Since their real bodies were most likely in the grotto heaven, Night Sorrow was prepared to fight again after he advanced. "Junior, don't be so arrogant. Just you wait." Yu Xinghui replied unhappily. Then, he looked at the other two and said, "Don't talk nonsense with him. Let's go." "Okay." He agreed and disappeared in the void. Soon after, the other two people also disappeared. They must have gone to meet up with their real bodies. Looking in the direction that the three had disappeared, Bai Mei Sanren made a guess. Then, he said, "Brother Knight, you are in the sovereign realm, but you have not been defeated by three top earthly sovereigns. This is a talent that can be seen with the naked eye. Let me be your protector." Senior Bai Mei, Night Sorrow has grown up in battles. If I am taken care of by someone and have someone to rely on, I may lose my fighting direction. So, forget it. Night Sorrow replied and continued to fight for the opportunity in the void. The scene of him defeating the three half-step to earthly sovereigns had been seen by the people around him. Moreover, there were many resources in the void, so there was no one looking for trouble with him. Under such circumstances, Night Sorrow collected some more resources. Then, he looked at Bai Mei Sanren and said, "Senior Bai Mei, can Night Sorrow ask you for a favor?" "Hee, what favor? What is it?" White-browed unaffiliated cultivator smiled. "I am going to find a place to break through to the sovereign realm. If you have the ability, please help Night Sorrow take care of my friends in the realm of the gods." Night Sorrow bowed to Bai Mei Sanren and said, "Clan M." Chapter 3063. Take care of them? No problem, but in my opinion, they don't need anyone to take care of them. Bai Mei Sanren smiled as he looked down. At this moment, the people of the heavenly realm were fighting with the supremes of other territories. They were fighting for resources. They were fighting with supremes of the same height and were not at a disadvantage. At this point, no one had been absorbed into the eternal divine tower. Moreover, they had gained a lot. Night Sorrow followed Bai Mei Sanren's gaze and looked over. Wan Jianzong immediately said, "Brother Yi, come over. We have gathered a lot of resources. Together with what you have, you should be able to break through to the Supremes." "No need, Brother Wan. With Senior White Brow's help, I have obtained enough resources. I am going to break through to the Supremes now. Take care of yourselves. Keep all the resources you have obtained." Night Sorrow looked at the people of the heavenly realm, then pointed at Bai Mei Sanren and said, "This is Senior White Brow. If you encounter any danger, you can ask him for help." Senior White Brow. When the people of the heavenly realm heard Night Sorrow's introduction, they immediately greeted Bai Mei Sanren. "Haha. Good, good. If you have any problems, send me a message." Whitebrow Wanderer greeted everyone and then flew up into the sky where there was no one else. No one could approach the height he could reach. Therefore, the best things were basically all taken by him. Seeing Bai Mei Sanren fly to the highest altitude, Wan Jinzong could not help but sigh, if only I had such strength. If you had such strength, you would have entered the grotto heaven to fight for the good things. Yuan Fengshui joked after Wan Jinzong finished speaking. Then, they continued to fight for the resources in front of them. As for Night Sorrow, with Jing Yun's help, he returned to the grotto heaven and absorbed the various resources in peace. He had already reached the pinnacle of the sovereign realm. Now that he continued to absorb the earthly supreme's laws and essences, his body and soul quickly reached the pinnacle of the sovereign realm. At this peak, Night Sorrow encountered a small bottleneck. That was a mental shackle. In about 4 hours, he had successfully overcome it. These resources are truly divine. This was especially true for the supreme blood essence of a peak-grade supreme being. Its quality was simply heaven-defying. If I hadn't absorbed them, I would have needed tens of thousands of years of bitter cultivation to reach the supremacy level so quickly. And that was in the eternal sovereign world. If we were in the God realm, who knows how much time it would take? Night Sorrow, who slowly stood up from the grotto heaven, suddenly felt a little emotional. However, he didn't stop at all. He directly flew up into the void to welcome the lightning tribulation that was brewing. Logically speaking, the lightning tribulation energy body of the sovereign realm should be extremely powerful. However, Night Sorrow's heart was as calm as still water, without the slightest ripple. This was the confidence he had developed after transcending tribulation so many times. Not long after, the sovereign thunder tribulation body appeared. It was similar to Night Sorrow's tribulations in the past, but the energy contained in its body was obviously much stronger. After it appeared, it grabbed the lightning in its hand and struck towards Night Sorrow. Good timing. I can use your lightning to train my body. Night Sorrow, who was flying horizontally, held the golden heavenly halberd in his hand, but he didn't brandish it. Instead, he used his body to welcome the lightning attack of the lightning tribulation energy body. Being struck by lightning of such intensity, even if Night Sorrow's body was very strong, it was still very uncomfortable. However, he gritted his teeth and persevered. Still nothing. He attacked the lightning tribulation energy body and continued to rely on it to train his body. However, to Night Sorrow's surprise, this time, the lightning tribulation energy body seemed to have some intelligence. In a situation where its continuous attacks didn't have any effect, it suddenly chose to self-destruct. It wanted to use self-destruction to kill Night Sorrow. Jing Yun, quickly let me out of the small world. Night Sorrow, who realized that the lightning tribulation energy body was going to use self-destruction to kill him, immediately sent a voice transmission to Jing Yun. Husband, you can come out now. Jing Yun, who received the voice transmission, immediately recited the incantation. After she spoke, Night Sorrow immediately flew out of the small world. The moment he flew out, the lightning tribulation energy body completely exploded inside. It caused the entire world to tremble a few times. What happened there? The commotion was too big, and it immediately attracted the attention of many people. Many people locked their eyes on it. At this moment, Night Sorrow was gradually trying to restrain his aura. This was because he realized that after he had truly advanced to the Supreme Being level, he couldn't control his aura at all. His entire person looked radiant and colorful, which didn't match his character. Haha. Little brother Knight, congratulations on successfully advancing to the Supreme Being level. You have taken the most important step. Everyone who advances to the Supreme Being level will uncontrollably overflow their aura. You don't have to deliberately control it. At this moment, Bai Mei Sanren, who was originally continuing to fight for resources in the void, said with a smile. Senior Bai Mei, why did you say that I have taken the most important step? Hearing the other party's words, Night Sorrow asked in puzzlement. Supreme Being, Earth Supreme Being, Heaven Supreme Being level. In fact, they are all Supreme Beings. And those below the Supreme Being level are ants. Now, you are truly on your way. Bai Mei Sanren explained. Yes. Now that Senior has said it, it does seem to make sense. At the very least, I have caught up with one step. Knight Sorrow nodded and continued, I still need to help my friends in the territory with resources. When the resources are enough for them to advance to the Supreme Being level, Senior and I will travel together and enter the Grotto Heaven to explore. How about that? Haha. Great. But don't call me Senior in the future. Just call me brother. Bai Mei Sanren said with a smile. This was the same as Mo Qianqian's address. Knight Sorrow felt that it was quite natural to call him that, so he said, then I will have to trouble you to wait for me for a while. You have helped me so much this time. We will strive to fight for suitable resources in the Grotto Heaven to help you advance to the Earth Supreme Being level. Speaking of which, it is strange. The rules and essences that can advance to the Earth Supreme Being level are clearly distributed in the fog. But for some reason, the 3,000 Grotto Heavens will drop some every time. It is strange. Bai Mei Sanren said doubtfully. He more or less knew some things about the 3 Grotto Heavens, but the extent of his understanding could only be considered superficial. Maybe this is called the will of the heavens. Maybe the heavens don't want the strength of both sides to be too unbalanced. Knight Sorrow said and flew up into the sky. This time, his strength had advanced to the level of lower Supreme Being. It was much easier to fly up than when he was a half-step Supreme Being level. Soon, he flew to the height where Bai Mei Sanren was and collected some resources. After collecting for a while, Knight Sorrow's mind suddenly moved. He found that there was an Earth Supreme Being level spear at a higher position. Clan M. Chapter 3064. A real earthly sovereign divine weapon. And it's a spear-shaped divine weapon. I must get it. The earthly sovereign divine weapon in the void wasn't shining brightly. On the contrary, it was faintly discernible black light. The range of the black light wasn't more than 100 meters, but it gave off an extremely powerful aura. After seeing it clearly, Knight Sorrow immediately activated the sea serpent's eye to confirm it. Confirming that it was real and not a projection, he rose into the air again and flew towards the earthly sovereign divine spear. Originally, only Knight Sorrow and Bai Mei Sanren could reach this height. Bai Mei Sanren didn't have any intention of fighting for it. When Knight Sorrow, who had activated the Treastrimsa battle mystic technique, rose to the vicinity of the earthly sovereign divine weapon, there were no other competitors. When he got closer, Knight Sorrow didn't immediately take it. Instead, he said, "Fight with me." Although it was only 4 words, Yi Shan had said them with confidence and a trace of soul attack technique was mixed into them. After he roared, his deep voice reverberated in the void. This was Knight Sorrow's way of proving his strength. This was because he could already see that the earthly sovereign divine spear in front of him clearly had an artifact spirit. Moreover, the artifact spirit was also at the earthly sovereign level. Moreover, because it was a spear spirit, it gave off an extremely sharp feeling. It was very different from Little Seven on the 7th level of the Eternal Divine Tower. Knight Sorrow could clearly tell that if he took it directly, he would definitely be met with an extremely violent counterattack. "You're not worthy." After about 3 breaths of time, the spear spirit suddenly spoke with disdain. "Oh. Then why do you think I'm worthy?" Knight Sorrow didn't get angry immediately after being despised by the spear spirit. Instead, he continued to ask. "Those below the earthly sovereign level are all ants. They can't stimulate the Overlord's Warhalberd's true strength, so you're not worthy." The Overlord's Warhalberd's weapon spirit glanced at Knight Sorrow, then at the other cultivators present and said, "No one here is worthy. You're all trash. Little weapon spirit, you sure talk big. Since you think I'm not worthy, I'll prove it to you. Submit." The roaring Knight Sorrow had originally intended to use peaceful means before resorting to force. With a roar, he reached out to grab the halberd. "How dare you! How dare you offend my Overlord's Warhalberd? You're courting death." The weapon spirit of the Overlord Warhalberd flew into a rage when it saw Knight Sorrow trying to grab the halberd. Controlling the Overlord's Warhalberd, he thrust it towards Knight Sorrow's chest. Even if you were a real earthly sovereign, so what if you were an earthly sovereign? Facing the incoming overlord battle halberd, Knight Sorrow took out his golden heavenly halberd and performed his own Qingxian godly spear art. The overlord's war halberd began to fight. After advancing to the earthly sovereign realm, Knight Sorrow's true fighting strength was comparable to a practitioner who had just advanced to the earthly sovereign realm. Facing the overlord's war halberd, he didn't feel much pressure. At most, he would face an opponent who was on par with him. Even though the golden heavenly halberd's grade was not as good as the overlord's battle halberd, he was still able to handle it with ease. Soon, he was able to suppress it. After all, the overlord's war halberd was not a real earthly sovereign. Its fighting strength was relatively average. It was only slightly stronger than a half-step earthly sovereign. It was not at the level of a real earthly sovereign. You are very talented, but I, the overlord's war halberd, will not submit to an earthly sovereign. If you are not an earthly sovereign, you will not be able to control me. The overlord's war halberd refused to accept the fact that it was being suppressed. It continued to resist Knight Sorrow. In its eyes, only an earthly sovereign was worthy of using it. No matter how talented an earthly sovereign was, he was not qualified. Interesting. The weapon that said that last time has already been integrated into the golden heavenly halberd. I think your ending will be the same as it. The overlord's war halberd's grade was not bad. It was an earthly sovereign, but it was obviously unruly, just like what it had encountered before. Knight Sorrow suddenly had the thought of integrating it into the golden heavenly halberd. Only then would it truly belong to him. What? You want to integrate me? Dream on. Hearing that Knight Sorrow wanted to integrate it, the weapon spirit of the overlord's war halberd was completely enraged. It roared and controlled the overlord's war halberd to transform into a warrior in purple armor. It then slashed at Knight Sorrow violently. Very strong. Is this the previous owner of the overlord's war halberd? Indeed, he has the disposition of an overlord. The overlord's war halberd's attack was very powerful. It was as if it could tear the heavens and earth apart. Even as an opponent, Knight Sorrow could feel the unyielding fighting spirit of the overlord. After praising him, Yi Shang sighed and said, "What a pity. Although you were unparalleled in martial prowess, you have already fallen. I must take the overlord's war halberd." At the same time, Knight Sorrow used his pupil technique and shot it at the shadow. This ocular technique was comprehended by him during his battle with 100 Eyes. Its attack power was very strong. Light shot out from the eye of the sea serpent, and it immediately released a powerful aura that could destroy the heavens and earth. This overbearing aura was not inferior to the overlord's war halberd's attack. Let's fight. If you win, the overlord's war halberd is yours. If you lose, then you are not worthy. To Knight Sorrow's surprise, the shadow released by the overlord's war halberd had its own consciousness. It had its own consciousness. Then, the shadow held the overlord's war halberd in its hand and attacked, blocking the pupil technique. All right. Then let's fight. If I can't even defeat your shadow, then I am not worthy of your overlord's war halberd. Although the opponent in front of him was only a shadow, his aura was very powerful. This meant that he was not just an ordinary earthly sovereign when he was alive. He was very likely one of the strongest earthly sovereigns. Facing him, Knight Sorrow's fighting spirit completely exploded. All right. Let's fight. My divine weapon is stronger than yours. Let's give up our divine weapons and fight in close combat. The shadow of the overlord's war halberd's owner put down the war halberd and chose to fight in close combat with Knight Sorrow. No need. I, Knight Sorrow, don't want to take advantage of you. If I can't even defeat an earthly sovereign's shadow, what's the point of fighting for the overlord's war halberd? Knight Sorrow, who was holding the golden heavenly halberd, did not agree. He did not want to take advantage of his opponent. Very good. You have guts. The shadow of the overlord's war halberd's owner roared and slashed horizontally at Knight Sorrow with the overlord's war halberd. This move appeared to be very simple. It was like a general on the battlefield chopping down horizontally. But Knight Sorrow, who was facing it, felt that this move was not simple. This slash was like a blow that could split the heavens and earth. The momentum it contained was even more shocking than the momentum of the azure sea tide. Good. It is indeed the Overlord's momentum. The name of the war halberd is right. Facing this attack, Knight Sorrow roared and continued to use the azure cloud divine spear art to fight against it. The Overlord's war halberd was extremely terrifying to the golden heavenly halberd. He could not take it head on, he could only use his skills to fight against it. Clan M. Chapter 3065. Not bad. However, dodging is not what a king should do. The Overlord Battle Halberd's owner roared after fighting for a while. After he spoke, Knight Sorrow puffed out his chest and said, "A reckless man is not what a king should do." Knight Sorrow did not agree with the Overlord Battle Halberd's owner's words and replied. What they understood was different. On the surface, it was a simple conversation. However, it was their understanding of Tao. Reckless man? Hearing Knight Sorrow's words, the Overlord Battle Halberd's owner was stunned for a moment and said, "Since you said reckless man, then I'll let you have a taste of my reckless bull spear technique." As his voice fell, the Overlord Battle Halberd's owner immediately used the Overlord Battle Halberd to attack ferociously. Under such ferocious attacks, even if Knight Sorrow used his Qingxian divine spear technique, it would be hard for him to block. Although the other party's attack seemed very reckless, it was bold and bold. It contained the boldness of an angry man who would splatter blood in 5 steps. Good spear technique. The frenzied bull spear art's attacks were like a frenzied bull galloping madly. It was very impactful. Facing such unreasonable attacks, Knight Sorrow's golden heavenly halberd was indeed not easy to block. Because if he used it to block, the golden heavenly halberd might be in danger of breaking. Knight Sorrow did not want that. However, if he did not make such a choice, he would be suppressed. The Overlord Battle Halberd's owner's attack was simply arrogant and unforgiving. It was as ferocious as a tiger and a dragon. Just when Knight Sorrow was suppressed, the golden heavenly halberd suddenly trembled. Knight Sorrow, who was holding it in his hand, could instantly feel its unyielding battle intent. Being suppressed like this, its battle intent completely surged. Golden heavenly halberd, I can feel your battle intent. Then, let's fight to our heart's content. Knight Sorrow, who was holding the golden heavenly halberd, felt the surging battle intent of the golden heavenly halberd and a heroic feeling rose in his heart. With the golden heavenly halberd in hand, he once again used the Qingxian godly spear art to fight against the Overlord halberd's master's shadow. After choosing to meet force with force in this attack, Knight Sorrow's spear technique was clearly superior in terms of technique. However, after the golden heavenly halberd collided with the Overlord's war halberd, cracks immediately appeared. Clearly, there was a huge gap between the golden heavenly halberd and the Overlord battle halberd. Kill. However, in this sort of situation, the golden heavenly halberd actually said the word kill. Hearing this, Knight Sorrow's heart was filled with killing intent. At this moment, in front of him, no matter what, nothing could stop the determination in his heart. Golden heavenly halberd. Kill. Knight Sorrow roared as he poured his divine origin energy and merit power into the golden heavenly halberd. Then, he performed the human spear unification technique. Together, they charged towards the Overlord's war halberd. Knight Sorrow had learned this man's spear fusion from the Myriad Sword sect, but it had been a long time since he had used it. After becoming one with the spear, the aura released by the spear was clearly stronger. Boom! When the golden heavenly halberd and the Overlord battle halberd clashed once again, both of them were pushed back a lot. Knight Sorrow and the golden heavenly halberd were separated, and the golden heavenly halberd was broken in the middle. As for the Overlord battle halberd, it was also broken. Both of them were basically on par. Broken? My Overlord battle halberd was broken by a half-step earthly sovereign divine weapon? The illusory figure of the Overlord battle halberd was floating in the void, looking at the broken Overlord battle halberd in disbelief. After pondering for a long time, he sighed and said, "Forget it, forget it. It's yours now. As for me, it's time for me to leave." After saying that, the illusory figure of the Overlord battle halberd turned into a rain of light in the void and completely dissipated. Knight Sorrow, who was slightly injured, summoned the golden heavenly halberd into his hand. He stroked it gently and said, "Don't worry, I will fix you. Not only will I fix you, but I will also make you stronger." After that, Knight Sorrow merged the broken Overlord battle halberd into the golden heavenly halberd. No matter how tough the Overlord battle halberd was, it did not belong to him. However, the golden heavenly halberd was different. The golden heavenly halberd had already merged perfectly with Knight Sorrow. Not only this time, but in the future, he was not going to let any other divine weapon take its place. If there was something good, let it devour it. After that, Knight Sorrow floated in the void, trying his best to forge a brand new golden heavenly halberd. However, this time was different from the previous time. After Knight Sorrow repaired the golden heavenly halberd, he realized that although it was as tough as an earthly sovereign, it did not have the aura of an earthly sovereign divine weapon. Why is that? Standing in the void, Knight Sorrow was puzzled. An ordinary divine weapon was either a half-step earthly sovereign divine weapon or an earthly sovereign divine weapon. However, the golden heavenly halberd was in between the two. Haha. This is because your strength is not enough, and the earthly sovereign rules and essence that you have infused into it is not enough. Therefore, the spear in your hand is still a bit away from the earthly sovereign rules and essence. At this time, Baimei Sanren, who was 1,000 meters away from Knight Sorrow, explained. "Is that so? Is that so?" Knight Sorrow understood what was going on. When he spoke, he was thinking about something. Therefore, his words were not coherent. "It's like this. However, it should still have the potential to continue growing. I think that if you can advance to an intermediate sovereign, you should be able to make it a real earthly sovereign divine weapon. However, when it advances, it will face an extremely terrifying lightning tribulation. You have to be prepared." Baimei Sanren continued. "Thank you, Senior." Knight Sorrow held the brand new golden heavenly halberd and flew to Baimei Sanren's side. He said, "Senior, I have suffered some injuries and need to recover. After I recover, let's go to the grotto heaven together. What do you think?" "Haha. Sure. That's exactly what I want," Baimei Sanren said with a smile. "All right. Senior, wait for me," Knight Sorrow said, and once again rose to a height where no one could see him. In the void, he consumed some high-grade elixirs that he had just obtained and recovered. An opportunity like this would not last for long. Therefore, he did not want to waste too much time on recovering from his injuries. After about 2 hours, Knight Sorrow had completely recovered. He flew to Baimei Sanren's side and said, "Senior, let's go. Let's go to the teleportation portal together." "All right. However, I have to remind you that the grotto heaven is very dangerous." On the way to the teleportation portal, Baimei Sanren explained, "The actual masters of the 3 grotto heavens are Tianshao territory, Mingyan territory, and Immortal Extinction territory. If you go in, you will offend them. You have to think carefully." The 3 grotto heavens are actually controlled by them? Jing Yun did not know about this at all because the armored zombie's memory did not have it. This was also the first time Baimei Sanren mentioned it. Hearing this, Knight Sorrow immediately understood why Tianshao territory would send such a lineup. They were preparing to guard the grotto heaven's opportunity. Genius memorized this site's address in a second. Human mobile version reading website, M. Chapter 3066. It's controlled by these big forces. If you want to barge in, you might have to pay with your life. Are you sure you dare to go? Baimei Sanren, who had explained the situation of the grotto heaven, did not show any fear. I'm not afraid. But I need to understand that if I can escape unscathed, it's meaningless to send myself to death. After Yi Shang said this, he continued to ask, Senior. The teleportation array in the grotto heaven can be used at will. After entering, can you teleport out at any time? You can teleport in and out. But the teleportation array outside has no handle. There are people guarding the teleportation array inside. It's very difficult to enter or leave. Bai Mei Sanren continued to explain. Hearing this, Night Sorrow smiled and said, Since we can enter and leave, there's nothing to worry about. Senior, let's go. Oh. You don't want to reconsider? Bai Mei Sanren asked with a smile. As for the matter of entering the grotto heaven, he was more willing to leave it to fate. There's no need to reconsider. Senior, let's hurry up. Night Sorrow said with certainty. He felt that the two of them were already late, so they had to hurry up. Otherwise, they would not be able to make it in time. Before entering, Night Sorrow summoned back the restriction-breaking hammer and carried it with him. As for Little Seven, he was left outside to take care of the other people in the realm of the gods. Let's go. Let's go to the teleportation array. There's a fortuitous opportunity inside. At this time, there might not be anyone guarding the other side of the teleportation array. This is the best time to enter. Bai Mei Sanren said as he brought Night Sorrow to the teleportation array and stood on it. After Night Sorrow took out the divine crystal to activate the teleportation array, the two of them were immediately teleported to the grotto heaven. The three grotto heavens were a space that was independent of the 3,000 small worlds. This world was not like the 3,000 small grotto heavens, where each of them was so small and cramped together. The three grotto heavens occupied a vast space. The three grotto heavens each had their own large territory. They formed a tripartite balance of power. The place where Night Sorrow and Bai Mei Sanren landed was the only public area in the small world. It was located at the intersection of the three grotto heavens. The moment they landed, Night Sorrow's pupils shrank. Every territory of the three holy lands had sent people to guard this place. After a quick count, he found that each territory had sent out 5 supreme beings to guard the area. Who are you two? Do you know where you are? Get out of here. In the instant that Night Sorrow's pupils constricted, the paragons of the three holy lands appeared one after the other, followed by Bai Mei Sanren. A half-step earthly sovereign from the Tianshao territory immediately scolded. In fact, if not for the fact that Bai Mei Sanren had given him an unfathomable feeling, he would definitely have attacked. Hearing this, Night Sorrow and Bai Mei Sanren looked at each other and moved together. He directly attacked. To them, 15 supreme martial artists was not an undefeatable force. How dare you? Attack. Kill all of them. The half-step earthly sovereign from the Tianshao territory, Mo Tianyun, roared furiously. The people from the celestial extinction territory and the life extension territory also attacked. At this moment, Mo Tianyun transmitted his voice, Sir, there are intruders. Their strength should be above mine. We may not be able to deal with them. Should you come back and deal with them? Hold them back. This time, the opportunity from the heavens is different. If I'm not wrong, there will definitely be treasures that have never appeared before. I can't leave now. The 100 Spirits Territory Supreme Being from the Tianshao territory replied. This time, there were obviously more good things than before. He had no time to care about anything else. Yes. Sir. I will hold them back with the people from the other territories. Mo Tianyun replied and attacked with the others. Mo Tianyun's target was Night Sorrow, who was fighting with the 6 supreme martial artists. In his opinion, Night Sorrow had just entered the Supreme Being realm and would definitely be easier to deal with than Bai Mei Sanren. However, he and the other supreme martial artists fought with Night Sorrow for a while. Mo Tianyun completely felt that something was wrong. Because even if he and the others joined forces, they were still no match for Night Sorrow. They were constantly defeated. Mo Tianyun roared angrily. Who knows who this supreme martial artist is? He seems to be the Knight Sorrow who defeated Mu Tianai in the battle for Providence. I didn't expect him to have grown to such an extent. One of the supreme martial artists replied. He was also guessing, but he guessed right. Hearing this, Mo Tianyun frowned and said coldly, Knight Sorrow. What a Knight Sorrow. Not to mention that he stole the providence of the Tianshao territory. And he's still scheming for the opportunity from the heavens. I want you dead. While roaring, Mo Tianyun suddenly took out a long sword from his sleeve. This long sword immediately let out a beast-like roar when it was taken out. And when this long sword was taken out, the other cultivators who used swords all lost control of their swords. At the same time that Mo Tianyun slashed his sword at Knight Sorrow, he transmitted his voice to the two leaders of the terminating immortal territory and life extension territory. This kid is Knight Sorrow. Since it's from the divine realm, let's destroy it together. I also want to help you. But this opponent of mine is too strong. I'm afraid he already has the strength of an earthly sovereign. Zhu Wuchen, the leader of the extreme immortal territory, said unhappily. As for Ming Ming, the leader of Ming Yan's territory, he was suppressed by Bai Mei Sanren to the point that he could not even speak. Good sword. Facing Mo Tianyun's long sword, Yi Shang shouted loudly. He could tell that the long sword in Mo Tianyun's hand was a genuine earthly sovereign divine weapon. Its grade was even above the golden heavenly halberd. However, the hardness of the golden heavenly halberd was not inferior to an earthly sovereign. Hence, he was naturally fearless. He used the Qingxian godly spear technique to resist it. After this battle, Knight Sorrow realized that he had become an earthly sovereign. It was much easier for him to face a half-step earthly sovereign. Although his opponent had used an earthly sovereign divine weapon, it did not give him much pressure. Becoming an earthly sovereign is really different. No one below earthly sovereign should be my match. In the battle of 1 against 7, Knight Sorrow suddenly felt invincible. Then, with his own strength, he completely suppressed Mo Tianyun and the rest. Looks like you can't stop us. After suppressing everyone, Knight Sorrow looked at Bai Mei Sanren's side. His side was also in a one-sided situation. The earthly sovereigns guarding the pass were no match for them. However, the earthly sovereigns of the 3 holy lands were still difficult to deal with. After fighting for a long time, Knight Sorrow and Bai Mei Sanren only killed 3 of them. At this moment, Mo Tianyun transmitted his voice to the 100 Spirits Territory's sovereign again. Sir. We can't stop them. A few of us have already been killed. What should we do? Ignore them. The 100 Spirits Territory's sovereign of the 100 Spirits Territory replied and did not say anything else. Clan. Chapter 3067. Ignore them. Tianshao Territory's 100 Spirits Earth Sovereign responded. Mo Tianyun immediately understood that the fight for the treasure this time would be very intense, much more intense than he had imagined. Since he was running anyway, he flew directly toward the location of the heavenly opportunity. He thought to himself, no matter how strong the 2 of you are, you won't have the ability to overturn the situation when facing the 3 earthly sovereigns of the major territories. After Tianshao Territory's Mo Tianyun escaped, the people of Immortal Extinction Territory and Life Extension Territory also fled in all directions. They escaped. Forget it. Don't chase. Let's go straight for the opportunity. Bai Mei Sanren had the upper hand in the battle just now, but he did not kill anyone. The 3 people who had been killed had all died at Yi Shang's hands. Seeing that Knight Sorrow was about to attack Mo Tianyun, Bai Mei Sanren advised him. If you don't kill the snake, it will be in trouble. After Bai Mei Sanren's advice, Knight Sorrow, who could have killed Mo Tianyun in one blow, did not attack. He was giving face to his seniors. However, although they did not chase after Mo Tianyun, they went the same way as him and quickly passed by him. The heavenly opportunity caused a huge commotion. There was no need for Mo Tianyun to lead the way. Night Sorrow and Bai Mei Sanren could also find the place to fight for the opportunity. When they reached the place, the two found that the heavenly opportunity was at the top of a mountain covered in dense fog. There were about 100 people present at this time. Looking at their clothes, they should be people from the three holy lands. Among the opportunities that fell from the void, there were heavenly sovereign rules and essences. These essences decreased very quickly and were very difficult to capture. This was because these heavenly sovereign rules and essences had all turned into the shape of animals. They looked like spirits that could dodge by themselves. At this time, the 100 cultivators present were all capturing these spirits. Heavenly sovereign rules and essences. They are heavenly sovereign rules and essences. If you can get some, you can quickly recover to the earthly sovereign level. Seeing the heavenly sovereign rules and essences floating in the void, Bai Mei Sanren's eyes immediately lit up. Then should we just go up and snatch it? Night Sorrow said as he observed the situation. At this moment, the people from the three holy lands were all trying to capture the heavenly sovereign's law and essence. As for the spirits formed from these rules and essences, as long as they landed on the mountain, they would fuse with the earth. It hadn't always existed. If they were to make a move now, the supremes of the three territories might not necessarily pay attention to them. However, it was still very dangerous for the two of them to face more than 100 supreme martial artists. Men die for wealth, birds die for food. Let's go. Let's talk about it later. After all, there are only 3 earthly sovereigns here. The others are not much of a threat to us. You don't know how hard it is to obtain a heavenly supreme's laws and essence. Bai Mei Sanren could not remain calm in the face of a heavenly supreme's laws and essence. If he could snatch enough precepts and essences, not only could he recover to the level of an earthly sovereign, but he could also make great strides in the earthly sovereign realm. He felt that it was worth risking his life for the sake of these laws and essences. All right. Then let's go. If they attack us, we'll make sure they don't get anything. With Bai Mei Sanren's words, Night Sorrow also steeled his heart and flew into the void with him. At this moment, although the supremes of the 3 territories noticed Night Sorrow and Bai Mei Sanren, these 2 uninvited guests, none of them attacked them. They were all frantically trying to capture the heavenly supreme's laws and essence. Even the people from the 3 holy lands could not resist the temptation of these precepts and essences. When snatching, keep a low profile. Once we've snatched enough, we'll retreat. We have to leave before the fight for the opportunity ends. Bai Mei Sanren immediately transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow when he realized that no one from the 3 holy lands spoke. He knew that if they waited until the fight for the opportunity ended before leaving, it would be very dangerous. All right. We'll leave after we get some gains. Night Sorrow's goal was to snatch the precepts and essences that would allow him to advance to an intermediate sovereign. According to his estimation, this would require him to obtain about 20 fairies. After replying to Bai Mei Sanren, he flew into the void and tried to capture the heavenly supreme's laws and essences from the periphery. Mo Tianyun, who had just arrived, saw that the heavenly supreme's laws and essences were continuously descending from the void. He was stunned. Ignoring Night Sorrow and Bai Mei Sanren, he directly rushed forward. In the past, the grotto heaven would not descend heavenly supreme's laws and essences like this. What was going on this time? These little things are really slippery. After joining the army of heavenly supreme's laws and essences, Night Sorrow tried to capture them and realized that these fairies were very difficult to capture. He could not help but use the Shantian's secret shadow. If he did not use it, he would not be able to catch up to these fairies. At this moment, the people from the 3 holy lands were all frantically capturing the fairies and did not have the time to pay attention to him. Thus, no one noticed that he was using the 9 Mysteries territory's remarkable ability. After about an hour, Night Sorrow successfully captured 7 fairies. In terms of numbers, he was ahead of Bai Mei Sanren. At this moment, Bai Mei Sanren had captured 5. Brother Night Sorrow, good technique. When we escape later, I'm afraid none of them will be able to catch up. Bai Mei Sanren, who glanced at Night Sorrow, laughed and joked. Then, he continued, let's each capture a little more before we leave. The Heavenly Supreme's laws and essences are descending more and more. I'm afraid it's going to end soon. Okay. I can leave at any time. Night Sorrow replied and continued to chase after the fairies. However, at this moment, some special fairies suddenly descended from the void. Originally, these fairies were all sky blue. The new fairies that descended were pure gold in color and emitted a bright light. They looked very dazzling. The rules and essence they contained were obviously not something that ordinary fairies could compare to. However, only 10 of these little sprites would descend at a time. When the 3 earthly sovereigns saw the golden fairies descending from the sky, they stopped chasing after the blue fairies. Each of them picked a golden fairy and chased after it. For earthly sovereigns like them, the heavenly sovereign's rules and essence was the best way to increase their strength. Their importance was self-evident, and none of them were in the mood to deal with Night Sorrow and Bai Mei Sanren. At this moment, Night Sorrow and Bai Mei Sanren exchanged glances. They both understood each other's intentions, which was to fight for the golden sprite. Let's each grab one and run. This was because a golden sprite's aura was 20 times stronger than an ordinary sprite's. Snatching one was equivalent to snatching 20 blue sprites. Bastard, how dare you plot against the golden fairy? Seeing Night Sorrow and Bai Mei Sanren trying to snatch the golden elf, Yi Zichen was stunned. The Heavenly Owl Territory's 100 Spirits earthly sovereign was furious. However, after he roared, the golden fairy in front of him had already run a distance away. After thinking for a while, the 100 Spirits earthly sovereign decided to chase after the golden fairy. However, he roared, the 2 of you are fishing in troubled waters. Don't think that this matter will end peacefully. Clang. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.